Good morning, and welcome to Tennessee Bears Fun with Flags with a special guest today. Good morning. Welcome to Tennessee Bears Fun with Flags. Oops, I need to turn that off. With a special guest today. Okay, now I should be good. I'll have to put these on, I think. Hi, Dave. Good morning. Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Brenda. We'll give folks a minute to see if who else shows up. It usually takes people a few minutes to pop in, and then I'll bring my guest forward and bring him to the forefront. And hey, Cherie, good to see you. Are you working this morning? Or are you in a break, or possibly off? Probably not off. Carol, good morning. Now, Carol, have you started driving yet? So I know you got to go somewhere. So, can you see the screen, Carol? I'm going to introduce, if you can, I'm going to introduce my friend while you can see. Okay, Cherie, good. We'll probably still be here at lunch unless this is an early lunch. Dean, the turkey legster. Good morning, sir. Hey, Phil Dalton, lurking in Seymour. Good deal. Well, there's enough folks here. I want to bring in my special guest for today, while Carol and those are here that might have to leave early. And this is a longtime friend of mine. He's one of the few people that I know currently that I've known longer than I've known Phil Dalton, who's now in the chat. I'd like to welcome in Phil. I think this is the first time he's been in our show, and we're going to have a fun time and enjoy the visit. So let me introduce my good friend and longtime history buddy, Mark Zorns. Good morning, Uncas.
Good morning, Chingachgook.
You are live. Well, you are live when the there you come, when the delay catches up. I wanted to go ahead and bring you in before I have a couple of people that may have to leave early. I know if you can see your chat there, the lady named Karki, she's got to go somewhere. She'll be listening, but she may not be able to see the screen. So I want to make sure that people got to see your shining face before they left.
Well, welcome to Wyoming. It's snowing.
Carol, Karki's her name is Carol, and she lives in Michigan. Dean, the turkey legster, he lives in Florida. Actually, there's a guy, Space Mountain Dave, in here. He lives in Florida. And if you'll look, you'll see that Mr. Philip Dalton is in the room.
PD. Good morning, brother.
Carol, just for you, I'm going to wake the Tedster up. He's in his snap, but he'll probably be fussy, but he'll come on. Oh. Say hi to Carol. She's here watching. You need to say hi. Carol happens to be Teddy's president of Teddy's fan club. So she's oh, okay.
He ain't happy.
I woke him up. He does not. He's a sweet cat, but he don't like to be woke up from a nap. Well, good for you, Dave. I'm glad you got that's your first one. Better late than never. Super Teddy. Yeah, he was a little fussy, Carol. He didn't. I told him he shouldn't act like that in front of his fan club, but he's thinking about going on strike when all the other TV people go out.
Okay.
Hey. Okay, Phil.
Okay, Philip.
Yeah, in case anybody else doesn't see it, another new guest to our room today is Philip Dalton. He's my other best buddy that lives here nearby that we've worked together we did work together for about 15 years or so. And then we've been riding together and stuff for longer than that until I got laid up and can't ride. So we've got a few miles between us. Mark and I have a few miles between us, to say the least. I'm going to run through a quick bunch of slides. I'm going to share the screen here for a moment. And this is just a little bit of stuff about Mark to give you guys an idea. Mark is let me talk just a minute first. Mark is retired from the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission, or what do they call you out there? Game and Fish what?
Department.
Department.
The commission oversaw us.
Right. It's different names in different states, so I thought I needed to get that right. Yeah, Phil and I have known each other since 1981. He came to Nashville when I was working down there. I'd been there about a year, just a little over a year when he came, and we've kind of been hanging out together ever since. So anyway, Mark retired in March or February or sometime this spring, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
and,
March, I think it was.
I believe I read that you had 27 years in.
I did.
Close. And was involved in a lot of programs out there. I'll let you. I believe when you retired, you were were you doing something about the migration initiative, or I don't know what your official title was. Oh, director of open lands or something?
No.
Not director.
I was just a biologist supervisor, but that was one of the programs we worked on.
Okay.
We did everything from white-footed mice to grizzly bears. So, had responsibility for all flying and crawling creatures. Cool. All creatures great and small.
Are your white-footed mice the same as our white-footed deer mice, or are they different species?
No, they're the same critter.
Same. Well, They get around then. They're all over the country. That's what I used to trap for out when I was doing back when I had a decent trade. That's an inside joke, folks. You may not get that one.
Before you went off to Oregon.
Yeah, before I went off to Oregon. But I was doing a project for the university. So anyway, I'll tell you about that another time. So Mark did that, and what was I going to say?
I don't know.
I lost that train of thought. Got plumb off the rails. But anyway, so I'm going to show you a few slides. I will show you now a few slides. But I know what I was going to say. I actually met Mark's dad probably in about 1970. I'm going to say 8 or maybe 9. He had a little storefront in the town I grew up in, Jonesboro, and he was selling muzzleloading rifle stuff, and I was getting into that at the time, and so I hooked right onto that wagon, probably more than he wanted me to. But we've been kind of knowing each other ever since, except for this long break we kind of took that neither one can figure out how come we did that, but we did it. So that's water under the bridge now. All right, let me see if I can set this up. And I gotta move my microphone for a minute. Oh, here it is.
So I got to remember to look over and read stuff because I'm not.
Oh, you can't see it, can you?
No, I can see it.
You can see the screen. You can
No,
see
I
the.
can't. I can't see the
Oh,
screen.
you'll be able to. Yeah, you'll be able to see that. Well, I can read it for you if you want me to, and then you can correct me or expound upon it.
No, I'm just looking at comments. I got to remember
Oh, okay.
to look over and anyway.
Yeah, if you.
Hey,
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah, Brenda's right. We've known Phil and I have known each other since our kids were born, pretty much.
Kizzy.
That's right. All right, here comes. Always have to remember how to do this. Just takes me a few steps, and most of you probably already seen this. This is the welcome thumbnail I put together for this morning, and that's Mark just told me that's one of his wife's sunflowers she plants every year for the birds. And hey, there's the Mickey Bunch. Welcome, Kelly. Pirate Red is in the room. So glad to see you. You don't know if your friend Mr. James Ryan's going to be here today, do you, Kelly? James Ryan's another fine fellow I've met online. That he and I have a date someday to meet in front of the castle. He wants me to meet him in front of the castle, the statue in Disney World, so we can shake hands when I can walk again. All right. So anyway, most of you guys have seen the introductory slide, and this is some pictures of Mark's former and current yards, more or less. I mean, I don't know if that clover field was yard, but or alfalfa, whatever's in there, but it's that's a young bull moose. I don't know if it's young, but it's not got a huge rack. And the other two slides, which I hope you can see, are two great horned owls that spend the summers in Mark's front yard or in his yard. Mark, go ahead and tell them about the owls a little bit.
Well, all those photos right there at my current house. That's an alfalfa pasture I've got right next to my front yard that moose is in, and my shadow's in that photo, but I was only about 7 feet from him, which is stupid. But there's a Powder River panel between me and him, so he was going to have to work at it to get to me. But
now, a Powder River panel is what, a metal gate fence, or
it's just a metal panel with metal rails that you use to build corrals with, and I've got some of those. I've got them strategically placed all around the property in places, so just to keep the horses in. But we've got, and then there's two horned owls that they come in here in August, and we've lived in this place now for 3 years, and every summer they come in August and they stay till about the middle of January, when they go off to start setting up housekeeping for nesting. And I think they go to my neighbors then, but they're in my yard every day. I can go out at any time during the day and find them sitting in the trees. So,
and that's mainly because out where Mark lives, big trees are few and far between, and he's got big trees. At least out there considered big trees, and so the owls look for a big tree to sit in, so they get to come visit him every day. That's pretty cool, though. I'd like to have that.
And they work over my deer mice population pretty hard, which is good. And then my grandbabies can all talk owl.
So. I'll have to get some recordings of them hooting, or you will have to send them to me, and I'll have to do that someday. I want to take pause just for a moment and say hi to John Surfbum. Good morning, John. Glad you can make it in. And my friend Mark Zorns from Wyoming's with me. Actually, I have another buddy from that I worked and rode motorcycles with. He's retired now too. Mark, I don't know if I told you that or not. So we're all retarded now. So retarded.
Yeah, good.
And but John, just for a quick, John lives in New Jersey, and we kind of have something in common. Oh, I have two things in common. John, this is the gentleman that took me out to the edge of Wyoming, Nebraska state border area and showed me the missile silo that you may very well have worked in at one time. And John's the guy I told you that worked out there for a while and was at the base out there.
Station at F.E. Warren.
Yeah, I will. I'll throw up a map here in a minute, Phil. Good idea. And I'll show you what, when I say he's the only one that's got big trees, you'll understand why in a minute. But I should have put that up on the screen. But I don't think anybody will find it if I just show a picture. So I don't think we're any worry about that.
The moonlight terrain.
It's pretty desolate.
I love it. I love it. It keeps the riffraff out.
Well, it's also you got the best place. I mean, you guys are living right on the river, so when you got river, you get some green. If you don't have river, you get brown. So
that's right.
Yeah, he said he was you got it, F.E. Warren Air Force Base. So, hey, Tina McNeil's in here. I missed her, Tina. If you're in here,
I have trapped many.
Yeah, hi, Tina.
Trapped many an antelope on F.E. Warren Air Force Base.
Oh, they let you hunt on that?
No, we trapped them and sent them.
Oh, trapped them. Oh, yeah. Did they have airplane problems with them hitting, or?
And they were always on the golf course and always,
Of course. Well, of course they are. That's where they belong.
Which is hilarious to me. But
it's
the only time I've ever been on a golf course was either shooting cottontails or trapping antelope.
We had they introduced some elk back here a few years ago, and John knows about Chugwater, Mark. He's probably the only other guy in this room besides me and you, maybe, that knows where Chugwater is.
Well, John, I lived in the suburbs of Chugwater. I was about 15 miles out of town, so you know where I was at, east out towards Hawk Springs. So the official middle of nowhere.
Is Chugwater big enough to actually have suburbs?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, it had 96 or 98 people, so.
Oh hell yeah, that's a lot. That's about how many you got now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys that live in New York or go to Disney World and see hundreds of thousands of people. Mark lives in a town where there's 93 or 96 people. So, and it's getting crowded. He told me he's about ready to pack up and move west. Oh, wait a minute, you can't do that anymore. You're like Daniel Boone. He's got to get out away from the people. What did Tina say? Oh, apron. Okay, she's talking about one of Brenda's aprons. Cool. I'm glad you liked it, Tina. I think you got one. Anyway, next slide here. I was going to say something else about I was going to chase a rabbit or a squirrel, because that made me, talking about the owls made me think of it. Now I can't. Now I've lost it. Oh, maybe it'll come back again in a minute. And here's a little bit of Mark's artwork. I think the one on the left, well, I think they're both really good, but the one on the left I think is really cool. And Mark, I've got it written down there that Chauvet Cave. I'm not Chauvet Cave in France. That's the oldest. Some of you guys might recognize, but that's the oldest, I believe, oldest known art that man has ever created. It's on a cave wall in France. They found it. I don't know when they found that. It's been a while, but it's not been terribly long ago. I mean, it's not been like hundreds and hundreds of years, I don't think. But anyway, he's replicating that on the wall for his, I now learned, he hopes his coming grandson, that is one of his daughters not stepdaughter or daughter-in-law?
Yeah, it's my daughter-in-law.
Okay. So anyway, you tell them about the art. You told me a really good story about that a few minutes ago.
Well, I had that originally. Prior to getting remarried, I lived in kind of a giant, oversized man cave down the river below me here, about 5 miles, I had one chair and a cot, and the rest of the house was a big shop. But in my living room, somebody mentioned that I lived in a cave, and I decided to put some cave art up to cover the walls of my living room, and which was kind of my saddle shop too. But that's I really like that, all the paintings they did in Chauvet, and so I have this is going to go on my next grandchild's wall, and if it's a boy, it'll look like that, and if it's a girl, it'll have sunflowers mixed in with it.
Sunflowers, okay. That's all right. Just raise her up to be an anthropologist or some other kind of.
Well, I mean, my daughter is that. I mean,
yeah.
She has an anthropology degree, so she went into the only field besides her father's where there's fewer jobs.
That's true. But that's got a lot to do with how. I mean, what else could she do? I mean, all she ever did was run around with you and hunt animal parts and fossils and that sort of thing. I mean, that's not too surprising. I got a couple more people joined us. Hi, Dave, with Adventures by Dave, and we got Kay Atwood. Good morning, Miss Kay. Hope you're well. And Dave, I hope you're well. I'm not sure you guys up to anything special today. So anyway, and then the other's a moose. I don't guess you painted that off anything just other than memory, I would imagine. But
well, that's my favorite place on the planet.
Oh yeah, that's right. You told me that.
So I mean, that's actually I took a photograph of that bull standing in the sagebrush and the willows, and then that mountain behind there is where we hunt deer and elk and grouse and whatever. It's the chapel, we call it. So,
which is funny because I have a Pinterest page, or I don't really maintain it much anymore, but I've got a Pinterest page, and on that I've been riding motorcycles a lot most of my life, but I have a whole section in my Pinterest page about the chapel, but in that case it's motorcycle shops and garages that I think look really cool. It's all about places that touch your soul, you know. It doesn't necessarily have to be a church somewhere. I just saw. Oh, Dave. Okay, I think you're talking to Dave. I'm gonna guess that you're talking about the Cameron Judd book about Davy Crockett. We were talking about Davy Crockett last night, and since I'm from up there, I knew some stuff. Did you ever read any of that guy's books, Mark? Cameron Judd. Do you remember him? He was from up around Limestone originally. And he's written several good history books. If you get into him, Dave, you're going to find out there's several other good ones. There's another good one called The Bridge Burners that's very interesting if you like Civil War period history, because it explains a lot about how East Tennessee was pro-Union and Western Tennessee and Middle Tennessee, by and large, was more pro-Southern. And your sister knows Cameron Judd. I don't know if I knew that, Phil. That's cool. Anyway, the Bridge Burners was all about a story about the Unionists in the Northeast wanted to separate from the southern part of the state or the part of the state that they considered was with the South. And they were trying to run the Confederate Army out of East Tennessee. And I think I don't know if Braxton Bragg or Longstreet was involved, but they were based in Knoxville at that time. So the Bridge Burners were supposed to all get together one night and burn all the railroad bridges between Knoxville and Greenville, or at least all the main ones, and to shut off so they couldn't get supplies back and forth. And they figured that would force them to move out or move back to Knoxville or whatever. And something happened. I can't remember the details. Plus, I don't want to spoil the story, but it didn't quite go down the way they hoped. And I think a bunch of local guys from Greenville got hung over it, but because that's what they did back then. But anyway, that's an interesting book. I had an uncle that knew Cameron Judd also personally, Phil, and he let me borrow the editor's copy of that book where he had marked up the margins and had notes in it and stuff. Fascinating. Really cool to have that. So anyway, moving on. Oh, I saw somebody else come in. Dawn, the Hitchhiking Bones. Is she in here? Yeah. Good morning, Dawn. Mark, Dawn she lives in Texas. She lives not too far from Tim Patton, from Denison, but she's from the Plateau area originally in Tennessee. So.
Oh, really?
I told her I'd forgive her for moving to Texas, but other than that, she was pretty.
Well, a lot of us did that.
That's true. We did. And she reminds me of that usually when I say that. T for Texas, T for Tennessee.
So, Surf Bum, there's still more pronghorn than humans in this state. It's heaven. We still got more antelope than we have people.
That's good. That's a good thing, I think.
That's a great thing. God bless cold weather and wind.
Yeah, Mark said he's expecting snow today, so they've already had some.
Yeah, it's snowing right now.
It was snowing hard enough. It was snowing hard enough a few days ago that they had a lot of the roads closed out there, which surprised me, actually.
'Tis the season.
Anyway, here's a couple more pieces. This bobcat on the left is something that Mark gave me. And he just told me that he drew that one day. Well, I don't know if it was one day, but he drew that while he was going to school up in Ohio when he was working on his, I guess, your bachelor's stuff for your wildlife degrees. And or I don't know if you didn't get a full bachelor's there, but then you went to not Hocking Tech. You went to Arkansas to finish that, didn't you?
Correct.
Yeah, that was at Hocking Tech in southern Ohio near Athens,
just outside of Athens at Nelsonville.
Nelsonville, that's right. I couldn't remember Nelsonville.
Harvard on the Hocking, they called it.
I've met a couple of people since I knew, since you that I worked with at TVA that knew all about Hocking Tech. I actually had worked with one guy who went up there and did some kind of teaching assignment or something. Went up there. Oh no, he was up there doing some kind of maybe he was still working in the Forest Service then, and went up there and got some kind of training. But it was at Hocking Tech, he told me.
Yeah, it was a big forestry and it had the only operational sawmill on a college campus in North America, and it was just a kind of a different little school. Now it's a 4-year college, and
oh, is it?
And they got all uppity.
And on the right is a copy of Mark's touch mark or logo. I guess is the more current word. I'm not sure what he calls it, but and I assume you drew that yourself.
I did,
and which I think is pretty cool. And I'm going to show you where he puts that sometimes. I believe the next slide may have them in there. This is a new hobby Mark's picked up. He's always been a little handy with his hands, so he's taking up saddle making. I'll let you talk about the saddles there, Mark. You can sort of tell them what they are and what you've got.
Well, the saddle on the left is a saddle I made for my son, and it's It's fully tooled. You can see flowers carved all over the thing. It took quite a bit of time to build, and but I was pretty happy with it. And then the saddle in the middle, it's just got my maker's mark there in the back, and it was a saddle I built for a local cowboy guy that rides for one of our local ranches here. And then the saddle on the right is a copy of Charlie Russell's saddle. I believe Tim's talked about on the show before, that I made for the guy that stood up with me at my wedding. So he wanted a copy of that Russell saddle, so I built that for him. And then there's a guitar in that picture that belongs to a cowboy singer named Dave Stamey, and that we were using that saddle as a prop that night. So, and Dave was going to sing to us, but anyway.
Yeah, and if you don't know who Dave Stamey is, and I'm not sure I had heard of him, and Mark told me about the saddle. Look him up on YouTube, and he's got, if you like, what I would call more of an old style cowboy country western music. What, country and western used to be kind of two things, and western was a big element, but he's what I'd call more of a cowboy or western singer, and his songs are ballads and things like that, which I always like because they usually tell a story. And he's pretty good. I think he's very good. And yes, if anybody out there's go ahead.
He's a real cowboy. So when he sings about no Sims eating on your ears, he knows what that feels like.
Yeah, he's got a song that opens up about, if anybody's ever gone camping, especially in the North Country, you know what no Sims are. They're these little teeny tiny flies that just bite you like crazy when you're camping or outdoors. In fact, if you look at an outdoor tent, especially a backpacking tent, most of the time they rate the screen doors and things in them as no Sim, either no Sim screen or not. And no Sim screen means the webbing or the holes in the netting is small enough that they're not supposed to be able to get through there. And of course, the other thing that means is you also don't get as much air through there, but that's the sacrifice you make for not getting your ears chewed off overnight, because they are voracious little devils, I tell you. And Charlie Russell, I have mentioned this, I think, before. Charlie Russell was one of, I think, America's two great Western artists, and he may have been the best. But Remington, I don't know, did Charlie Russell do sculptures and things too? Because Remington kind of branched off into that.
Yeah, I've never seen a Russell sculpture. But
I don't think so.
He was real specific to, that saddle, his original saddle was built by a saddler out of Cheyenne named Frank Meany or Mania. The Wyoming folks called him Meany. But he built wonderful saddles back, late 1800s, and it was kind of a badge of honor to own a Meany saddle back in those days, but Charlie Russell was real specific to Montana. He spent most of his time in Montana cowboying and painting and hanging out with native peoples and generally looked like having a really good time.
And which made him a little different from Remington. I'm not sure how long he was out west, but he was more of a traveling through kind of artist. And I don't know that he ever lived with anybody. I don't think he ever actually ranched. And you might know, Mark, but
yeah, he spent all of his time. He hung out with the military quite a bit in the West, but it was from Arizona to Montana, and then he actually painted. He actually was with the guy that went, the guy that they figure basically started the Spanish-American War, and Remington went down there and painted, the charge up San Juan Hill and that whole thing.
Hearst.
William
Randolph Hearst.
Yeah, so he ran around with William Randolph Hearst. Remington was like a a blue blood from the Northeast, but
Yeah, and
spent a
Russell
lot of
was,
time, spent a lot of time adventuring around the world.
yeah. Russell, if I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was born in St. Louis or somewhere like that. He was Western by anything that most people consider you Western if you're from other side of the Mississippi. So, pretty sure he was born in. I think I read that his mother.
Yeah, he was a
St. Louis.
Missouri boy that moved to Montana.
Yeah, and a lot of his stuff have Native American not undertones, but depict Native American life in Montana. So Northern Plains Indians is what he painted a lot of. Blackfeet, I guess Crow and Cheyenne. Sioux, I don't know about Sioux, maybe Sioux. Maybe not as much. They were a little bit further east most of the time. But anyway, I don't want to get my history wrong there. But
and then another cowboy artist, singer, Ian Tyson, out of Canada.
He's good too.
He wrote a song called "The Gift," which is all about Charlie Russell.
Yeah, that's a good song. If you haven't ever heard it, look him up too. Is it Dean Tyson?
Ian
Tyson. Yes, Ian Tyson. And I looked that song up, and in fact, I got the words for that song because that's a really cool song. And basically, he's saying that Russell was sort of God's gift to the world for being able to paint the Montana before the wild Montana was gone. Kind of is sort of the gist of it, and with a little more mixed in. But really, really good song. I liked it a lot. Mark told me about it, so I had to look it up as soon as I got off the phone with him. And I've listened to it several times. In fact, I like it so well, I wrote the words down, or not wrote them down, but copied them and keep them so I can remember them. I like when something sticks to me, I try to keep it or hang on to it. Miss Tina says she's listening and wrangling dogs and getting coffee. And when she says wrangling dogs, Mark, she means wrangling dogs. She's got at least 3 big old hound dogs that live with her. And usually when she's online or talking to somebody, it's when they always want to go in and out of the house.
Well, mine are running around here too. I've been trying to get my border collie to come here, but he's not listening to me this morning.
Yeah, he's busy. He don't want to be on the TV.
He's out on chicken duty right now. I just went out the door to go check on the chickens. So
he's kind of like Pat McManus's dog Strange. He's got chicken guard duty. Except he's better. Let's see. I had a note. Ashley, welcome in. Ashley loves Disney. Glad you can make it this morning. And it looks like the hitchhiking bones are traveling. She said she was getting ready to cross the Galveston Bridge on the way to Galveston, headed for the ferry across. You're going to ride the ferry across. That's cool. I like ferries. I think ferries are neat. We had a little ferry. One of the last ferries that exists in the state of Tennessee was in my region or area that I worked with when I had my TVA job, and I went across it sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And there may be a ferry in West Tennessee around Memphis, but I'm not sure. There may be something on the Mississippi, but I believe that this ferry, we call it Union County Ferry, is just the last one in this part of the world. It's still running. Tennessee used to be covered up with ferries because there's all kinds of rivers and big creeks here, or rivers, but I believe that's the last one there is. And that's kind of cool. I like, especially those kind of ferries. I guess I wouldn't like it if it ever sank, but yeah. And Kay Atwood, she wrangles cats. I think she has more cats than I do, which is starting to say something. But yeah. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Anyway, Charlie Russell was a very good artist. If you don't know Charlie Russell, I highly recommend you look him up on the internet and Google him and just look at some of his artwork. It's pretty good stuff. And I do like some of Remington stuff. I mean, it's a little bit different. Hickam, Kentucky is the next nearest one, Phil said. And Phil, what river does that cross? I'm sure he has been over it. No more Tennessee, Mississippi ferry. Oh, okay. There's no more ferries across the Mississippi either. Phil would know these things. He's a traveling man. He likes maps. If anybody likes maps better than me, it's probably Philip. Let's see. Next slide here. Oh, this is some leather work. And Mark the first two bags are things that Mark himself made and beaded. And the last one happens to be one that made by my lovely wife upstairs, Miss Brenda. And she gave it to Mark. So that's Mark, tell them about your pipe bags.
Well, I don't know what there's to tell. There's a lot of beadwork.
Tell them what they are. They may not not recognize them.
They were just a bag that the natives carried, that they carried tobacco in it, and typically a long, most people would call it a peace pipe. They were pipes that were kind of a holy item. It was a way to talk to God, was how they looked at it, and carried your thoughts to the heavens. And so they carried a catlinite or pipestone bowl with a long wooden stem, typically in that bag. And the one on the left is a crow or Absaroka type pipe bag, and the one in the middle there is a more like a Cheyenne type pipe bag. And then that bag on the right is a bag that Miss Brenda Pruitt made for me back probably in about 1982 or 3. And I've carried it ever since. It's kind of a possibles bag that I usually have a powder horn slung with it as well. But
and those tell them what the ribbons are. Just I kind of knew what the ribbons were, but he was telling me where they came from.
Yeah, they're just rendezvous ribbons that you got to wear something that shows that you paid to get in. And so
I think that's a good idea too. I like that.
And they're just long ribbons, and those are all from Fort Frederick, Maryland. They do a big trade fair there every spring, and until COVID hit. It's been canceled the last 2 years, but
maybe next year. That's and for those of you, is that a horn?
That was a train.
Is that your train? I wondered if that was a train.
It's sitting right in front of my house right now, blowing the horn.
Oh, okay. Mark's got a train on the end of his property. Probably not more than about 100 yards from your house, isn't it?
Yeah, I hate them.
No, well, yeah. Too bad they're not big, steamy, smoky things, though. That might be cool. For those who may not know, the rendezvous is a term. Well, everybody knows what a rendezvous is, I guess. But back in the fur trade era, the name rendezvous came to mean a period in the spring of the year when all the trappers that were out, mountain men were trapping furs in the Rocky Mountains, would gather. Well, I guess they had them in the east too at one time, but the ones out west were more famous, and they would meet the big fur trade companies would take loads of necessities, if you will, out there, things like gunpowder, lead for balls for the rifles, traps, whiskey, and other things. And camp concubines and that sort of thing would show up. But the trappers, they somehow through the word of mouth through the trappers in the mountains, everybody would know where the rendezvous was going to be, and the fur trade companies would go out there and set up, and they would wait for the trappers to come in, and then they'd trade for pelts, and the trappers would get sugar and flour. Sometimes they'd get lead. They'd get lead for bullets and powder that would hopefully do them for a while, because a lot of them, that was the only other interaction they had during the course of a year with civilization, if you will, or somebody that could supply them. Now there were trading posts in some areas, and they could work with them some too, and salt, coffee, that just those kinds of things. And and it didn't last too long. The rendezvous were big, and they're reenacted a lot. If you want to call it reenacting, but they have get-togethers most of the time. A lot of times they're called rendezvous, and people tend to wear buckskins and period clothing. It's like a lot like reenactment for, say, Civil War groups in that regard. They stay in teepees or lean-tos or tents of a certain period. Usually they're trying to recreate a time period from about 1750 or 40 to 1840. That stretch right through there, the French and Indian War, the Revolutionary period, the period in between that. The Great Fur Trade era actually ended in about the late 30s, 1830s, I believe. And that was pretty much when prices went, as Bill Tyler said. How did he put that? Beaver's gone for good. I can't remember now. But
never shine again.
Never shine again, yeah. And but so that's when we say rendezvous, that's what we're talking about. And they have several really big ones every year. And out west, they have what I'd probably say more bigger, better ones. But they do have them in the east too. So we used to, and Mark and I and his dad used to go every year. I don't know if Philip ever went. Phil, did you ever go to? You went to Friendship with us, didn't you? Or with me or something one time, I think. But anyway, we used to go to the National Muzzleloading Rifle matches every year in Friendship, Indiana. And in fact, twice a year. And we'd set up in the primitive area and live in a teepee and cook on a fire and just hang out and talk, just have a big time. So that was, as Bill Tyler said, those were shining times. Good times.
Philip, you were asking about hobos. They don't get off the train in this part of Wyoming. There's nothing here for them.
Let me take a moment here. I see several things. Hey, pass holder pair. That's probably. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Let's see what he had to say here. I can put a message up there. Amazing, I enjoy smoking tobacco. Oh, that's cool. That's really a nice thing about if you're going to smoke something. Smoking a pipe is probably the way to go. I mean, I used to smoke a pipe too, and I haven't smoked anything in years. But yeah, that's a real good point. Is it? Oh man, Bill? No, what is? Oh, tell me what your name is. I'm embarrassed. Or unless this is Val, I remember her name today. Usually I can't remember her name. Mike. Thank you, Tina. God, that's embarrassing. Wait a minute. Cold showers and meat pies. Oh yeah, that's what Brenda remembers about Friendship. Mark, cold showers and meat pies. I got to back up here a minute. I saw Ashley said something about going to a concert. And I didn't want her to think I was strictly ignoring her. I was just in the middle of this story there. And I know if I quit in the middle of the story, I'll lose the squirrel every time. And let me scroll down here. John says those trains are miles long. Yeah, some of those Western Pacific trains are pretty long. Well, actually, back here where we live, they used to be probably not as long, but we used to have coal trains that would have at least 200 plus cars in them sometimes out of the mountains or out of the coal fields of Virginia. Train used to run right by my grandmother's house, and we used to count them as they'd come through, and just something we kids did. And I got to where I could kind of count them at night because you could tell every time one ran over a joint in the tracks, it made that clickety clack sound. So you count the clickety clacks. I saw a hay guys there. Let me see what. Can't carry enough water. Oh, I missed that. Oh, yeah. Surf bum or surfer girl, Sherry, you still listening? Hey guys, pass. Oh, okay. He's saying hi. John's saying hi to pass holder pair. Mike, I'm sorry. I hope you'll speak to me again. I could not think of your name to save me this morning. Yeah, everybody, if you don't mind, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate you showing up today. For me, this was a very special morning chat because Mark and I we're great friends for a long time, and then we kind of got separated. I guess mostly by distance and time, but now that we're both retired, we're back together. We're gonna. In fact, we hope to see. We're planning on seeing each other in a couple weeks or few weeks up in Ohio, I think. So we'll see. Phil said he just finished a book about train hopping, so it was on his mind. Which book was that, Phil? That's interesting. Speaking of train hopping, this is a squirrel, but my mom, like I said, my mom and her family grew up just a couple, maybe 200 yards from the train, but the train blocked them off from the rest of the world going in that particular direction. It was a long ridge that ran. You had to cross the ridge and over the railroad tracks to drop down to my grandmother's house. And when she was a girl, Mom said that they used to go up and stand by the road crossing for the train, and the trains would actually stop and pick them up, and they'd have to pay a dime or something, and then they would let them ride into town, and they would ride into Kingsport, which was the nearest town, and do whatever they went there to do. Maybe they got to go watch a movie once in a while, and these were rare occurrences, mind you. And but her uncles always told us boys, "Oh, there's the dog. There's the chicken dog.
He made it into the screen.
He's got blue eyes."
If you're showing cats off, I'm gonna show off my blue-eyed dog.
Yeah, go right ahead. But anyway, her uncles always told me they just jumped the train. They didn't pay. They jumped the train and just rode in that way. And the train went through there pretty slow a lot of times because it was loaded down. There's a little bit of a grade there. And then there were a lot of people that used to jump the train and fill up their gunny sacks full of coal and then throw them off along the railroad and pick them up. That happened. That was one of the, I think Edward Abbey wrote about that in one of his books, but that was something that really happened up there. When those coal trains were going slow through there, they'd get on them and climb up on top of the coal cars and fill up a burlap sack and drop it off the side, and then they'd come back and pick them up when the train was gone. That's how they stayed warm in the winter. Yes, Tina, I'm afraid that is very true. Sometimes the harder I try, the harder it is to remember something. Okay, anyway, let me go and finish up these slides, and I threw this one in there. The squirrels, I got a squirrel fight. A little hierarchy going on out there. These two pictures I threw in. This is Mark's dad, and Mark's dad's in both these pictures. Mark's dad was a Marine for 10 years or so, and when he was, I guess, out of boot camp, they got off somewhere there. He was in California, and they went to Disneyland. And he had this picture taken. Now, folks, can you imagine them taking this picture today? I don't think any of the Disney photo places have this anymore. But this is a headhunter. Here the headhunter stands, a bit of a caricature. And the tall one I am right, man, Mark. And this Larry on the left.
That's Dad.
Yeah, taller of the two, and that's young Marine Larry Zorns. And this is a more current Larry Zorns on this horse right here. I guess that's back in Ohio, isn't it, Mark? Or is that out there where you are?
Yeah, no, he was riding one of my sister's horses there.
Okay.
Working on that colt. So anyway.
Horses go back a ways in this family. Mark, his dad had, in fact, I used to ride one of their horses up in the mountains too. And when they were still in Tennessee. And so, I guess that's their brand on that horse. I just saw that.
Yeah, that's my sister's brand.
Is that a broken heart or something?
I don't remember what she's got in the middle. It's like a heart. It's got her initials in it or something.
His sister's name is Lisa.
It's a Freeze brand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got a regular bull squirrel fight going on out here. One fat squirrel after another fat squirrel. And this may be the last slide I've got, but this is Mark's, I guess, the newest grandson until the newest one gets here. And,
yeah, that's the latest one.
What's his?
He's a ginger and he's see-through.
Mark told me that the other day, and I
his
couldn't
his eye is clear, and you can see his circulatory system. But and the bugs really like him, but he's all boy. He's gonna be fun.
Tell him about riding the rocking horse. You got to tell that story.
Well, so I bought him. So I'm a pretty big fan of bull riding, and surf bum. Yes, I go to Frontier Days to see the bull riders, and this year we went to the PBR back, the professional bull riders, and it was a good time. But anyway, the kid is I bought the boy a rocking bull, and we watch bull riding together, and he rocks it so hard he just flips himself clear onto his face, and he gets up and dusts himself off and gets back on and does it again. So
that's what he calls time with Grandpa. He said the kids all have to come. They come see Grandpa and have a big time, and then they have to go back and explain to Mom where all the bruises and scratches came from.
Exactly.
Kind of how I grew up with
it. Because when Grandpa has them by himself, they get to do all kind of cool things.
Climb trees.
Yep. Float down in the canoe in the river, whatever. They have a good time.
The picture, the little video I had that won't show up. I might be able to share that in a minute. Maybe I couldn't do it here. Maybe I can do that. I'll try that in a minute. But the little video he sent me of her. She's blowing an elk call or blowing some kind of call, but she's calling elk or bugling like they do for elk, which is pretty cool. And you said all the girls could hoot for hoot owls too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, you said that earlier.
They have a lot of useful skills now. They can catch crawdads, turtles and snakes. And
See, my girls were a bit like that too. I don't know. They weren't that keen on crawdads. I think they might have caught a couple, but they didn't like to get pinched. But they were. It wasn't much to Jennifer, at least, to pick up a snake once in a while and bring it over to show Dad, see what kind it was, which drove my mother to distraction because she was just scared to death they'd pick up a poisonous snake and, get bit. And I said, Mama, I teach them better than that. I said, they know the difference between a poisonous snake and a non-poisonous snake. On the right, I have a typo here, folks. I didn't look close enough. I glanced at this picture real quick. Instead of 2 Rio Grande turkeys, I am right about that. They're Rio Grandes, weren't they?
Yeah, I was in Texas, and that's the best turkey hunt I've ever had.
Yeah,
3 in one afternoon.
That's pretty amazing, huh? Turkeys are pretty elusive critters. I'd have to say that'd be a good haul. How many years ago was that?
It was just last spring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just this past April.
Well, I knew it wasn't too old because this past April.
Yeah.
So that's why your beard's long. I was going to say it couldn't be too long ago because you got a white beard. So.
Yeah, it was that April 21.
Oh, that's cool. And now you've told on yourself. You're going to have to. I'm going to have to come out there and go to the Frontier Days with you. I've wanted to do that most of my life.
Oh, it's a good time.
Let me turn this screen off, and we'll kind of go back to normal for a bit here. We'll make you big, and let me see if I can turn this off.
I got to back
up. You're okay. I'll have to mess with this a little bit and see if I can pull that. I'm learning something. I'm using Google now for a lot of things like my slideshow stuff there, and it don't work quite the same. I used Microsoft PowerPoint for years, and this is a little bit different. Not much, but a little bit different. Anyway, so that's a little history. I saw somebody come in. Let me check real quick and see who our guest might be if I make sure I hadn't missed anybody. Riding Toward Everywhere by William T. Volman, published in 2008. Well, I'll have to remember that. Try to remember that, Phil. Phil can be a walking encyclopedia of things, folks. If you need a guy to remember part numbers, service bulletin numbers, and that sort of thing, he's your man.
So Phil, Dad, and Mom are both 80 now.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I meant to ask you that, but the so anyhow, where are we at here? Okay, we've been on an hour. We're good. We're doing good. So Mark and I have been hanging around together. Mark, besides making saddles, you're still making. I'm gonna assume you're still making Indian bows. Well, you said you were. I think short bows.
Yeah, I'm still making them. Arrowheads, bows, arrows, quivers, whatever.
And some muzzle loaders from time to time. I think.
Need more hobbies.
Yeah, that's what Brenda said about me a while ago. She said, "You got a few too many things going on down here." I told her to mind her own business. That was part of my job, was to have things to do. Not sure she agrees with that, but that's the way it goes. Let me see here. I said in my
so who's the Mickey bunch that's ginger and see-through?
Her name's Kelly. Story of my life. Yeah, she's I don't know where she's living now. She was in not Texas. She was in Arizona for a little while. Her daughter's out there going to school. I don't know if that's where she's living right now or not, but yeah, her name's Kelly. She's quite the character and a friend. Her and another gentleman she knows named. Oh, I mentioned him earlier, James Ryan. He's another good friend.
Yeah, so Philip, Dad was joined the Corps in 1960, and then he re-upped for 6 more in 64 when I was born, or after I was born, and then they started sending him to the University of Southeast Asia, and he got to go over there a few times. So.
Yeah, he told me that he was going to make a career out of the Marines, so they gave him his orders to go back a 3rd or 4th time, and he said that was enough.
Yeah,
I thought he'd just leave then.
Which
I can't say that I blame him.
He was on the short list to be a gunny, which he always wanted to be. That's the coolest rank in the Marine Corps, and he said, "Nope, you're not sending me back over there." So.
Yeah, Gunny's a master sergeant, or is that what they call him in the Army when you reach that level?
Somewhere in there.
Kind of like a chief petty officer in the Navy, I think, maybe. But, or maybe not. Maybe that's not right. There's a rank. They have a different name for it. I had a couple of questions for you here, Mark.
Yes, sir.
And let me see if I can pull the right ones up. Phil has one. Nope, that's not the right one. Brenda Pruitt asked, "What kind of wood do you use for your bows, Mark?"
It depends. Osage orange mostly, and or bodark, some people call it, or hedge apple. It's a
lot of people back here know it as hedge apple.
Yeah, it's a cousin to the black locust that's native to the Great Plains and was really a prized bow wood. And then I use hickory. I've used hickory on a few bows, mostly Eastern style, longer, woodland Indian bows.
I thought Phil had a question.
Well, he did. He asked how old Dad was.
Well, I know, but I thought he said something about your bows too, or what you used your bows for, something. Yeah, Gunny is the Marine Corps certified. I knew that. I mean, I knew he was in the Marines and he was up for that. But I'd forgotten that part. He told me that years ago. But like I said, after a couple, 3 trips to South Vietnam, he decided that was enough. He'd just go ahead and retire a little bit early, which I can't say that I blame him, to be honest. Well, I swear I thought Phil asked you something about hunting with your bows, and now I don't see it. Maybe I just dreamed that. Maybe I was just looking at the one Brenda said about using your bows. Or no. Oh, no. She said, "What kind of wood do you use for your bows?" That's what it was. I thought they asked you what you used before. I have a bow. I have a Mark Zorn's bow hanging in here in my closet. And I set it up in the corner to give it a nice warp, and then I hang them up. Because case you don't know, that's a bow joke. That's an archery joke.
Bless
People,
you.
people have a bad habit of setting up older bows. When people shot recurves and longbows,
string it up and set it in the corner.
And set it in the corner like a gun or something. And then next time you pick it up, you realize that one of the limbs is twisted around like this. I've got a beautiful bow that's a takedown bow from the 40s or 50s that I picked up one time at a flea market. And it's got a slight twist in one of the upper limbs. I shot it. It shoots pretty good, but I've always been afraid it was going to bust in my face one day because it had that warp in it. I don't know if I could run it back to... I don't know if I could ever get it to bend back or not, but that just made me cry when I saw that warp. And I knew exactly what it was because they always warp like that when you stand them up on the tip in a corner. So, but anyway, I wasn't serious. I just haven't put that one in the corner strung. But anyway, I've got a Mark Zorn's bow. It shoots pretty darn good. But Mark, you were telling me that you make a lot of short bows now, more like or at least like some of the Plains Indians used on horseback.
Yeah, so I got into a kick on I got this little Morgan mare that I just kind of think about it and she does whatever I want. So I can ride her without holding on to the reins. And so I just kind of with leg pressure can steer her around. And I got into a kick on making little short horse bows and little short horse arrows and shooting hay bales at a full gallop in my yard. So that's a lot of fun. I'd love to draw a buffalo tag and go kill it, but my horse would probably buck me off and kill me. But anyway.
Would they let you do that from a horse?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you could draw a license. But
if you ever draw that license, I'm going to come out and watch.
That's a hard one. That's a hard one to get.
Yeah, I bet. They don't do that many a year, do they?
No. I mean, I could buy one on some of these bison ranches, but that's no fun.
Mark and I used to when we'd go to Friendship, one of the first things we used to do was go over and see a friend of ours and that sold beads. And he always had the best buffalo jerky. I think maybe the best jerky I've ever had, but it was buffalo jerky he bought from somebody, the Indians or somebody up in South Dakota. They were making it, and we'd buy a bag of it for like $5, and we'd eat on that. And one night we spent the night I believe it was the night we spent the night in one of the sheds down at the. Hey, there's the cat dog.
That's Mark's cat. That's my cat. The one-eyed 17-year-old dog.
And what is she or he?
I don't know what she is. Some kind of a little rat dog.
Yeah, okay.
Little yappy rat dog.
Anyway, we used to eat that jerky, and we found out that if you eat that jerky late at night and go to bed, that you wake up the next morning and the whole herd of buffalo's gone through your mouth. That's what we figured it had to be like, because, man, it's pretty spicy, salty kind of stuff. I mean, enough that I guess it dried you out, but it was, it definitely left an impact when that was all you ate. That was good stuff.
That was great stuff.
Is Pat Hartless still around, or do you know?
He's gone, buddy.
I thought so. I thought he was. I may have known that, and that's why I wasn't sure. What was the name of his business?
Flathead Trading Post.
Flathead Trading Post.
He passed 2 or 3 years ago now, I think. Went over to the other side.
Hey, John, let me tell you about it. John, I'll tell you later, buddy. Talk to you next week or sometime. Yeah, tell Dad we said hey. His dad calls every Saturday morning about this time, so he usually has to sign off.
Thanks for sitting in, John.
His dad lives in North Carolina, and so they talk pretty regular. Certain times of day, he always tries to call him, so he makes sure he's there to answer the call. And I knew it was about that time. This is about the same time every Saturday. Buffalo version of winning the Powerball lottery. Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, they're hard tickets to get. That a little bit like for a little while there. I think it was kind of like getting an elk tag back east. You had to. Not very many people could get one. In fact, they only did one or two a year for a while. I don't know what the situation is now. Yeah. Oh, Florida. He lives in St. Augustine. I'm sorry. Why do I keep saying North Carolina, John? I apologize. Which I think is kind of neat because that's the oldest city in America. You know, that's the fort down there has been there for several hundred years. It's pretty cool. I've walked around in that one time years ago. Big stone thing, you know, with cannon ports and the whole bit. What's out there?
What's out?
Yeah, just look. Yeah, what was that?
I'm just watching it snow.
Is it snowing pretty hard?
It's starting to get with it a little more.
Philip, you asked me a day or two ago how Mark got internet and all that. Well, it's a satellite, so he said if the snow gets too deep, we might lose him. So that's possible.
Yeah, we're good for now. It's just flurrying.
I got to ask a serious question here, brother. I ain't seen you drink coffee. Have you been drinking any coffee this morning? Or have you already had your coffee?
Me?
Yeah, I haven't seen you drink any, I don't think.
I had a whole cup of it.
Oh, okay. I just didn't see you drinking it.
There's my black rifle.
Mark's a little bit like me. He kind of likes special coffee. So, and Mark does something else that's really cool. And one of the reasons why he buys Black Rifle coffee is it's a vet-owned company. But Mark was telling me about something he's been doing out there for several years now that I thought was really cool. And he takes vets on hunts, I don't know, about every year, maybe every year. And you've been doing that for what, 10 or 15 years, you said, or longer?
Yeah, I think this year was our 16th year. And we take however many vets we can get a hold of and get licensed for them. We take them hunting. So,
and you give yours away sometimes, you told me.
Yeah. So we can donate our licenses to wounded warriors, and a vet has to be 75% disabled to participate in that program. And we take those guys hunting every year. So we had 4 guys this fall and everybody got an elk. So we're pretty happy.
That's great. Carol, thank you for coming in and visiting and meeting everybody. I really appreciate that. I can't thank you enough. And you say hi to your parents when you get there or when you go in. And, you might not want to tell her you know people like this, but, they may or may not know how to handle hillbillies. Because Mark, even though Mark's in Wyoming and he's probably more officially a cowpoke now, he is a hillbilly by birth, so he has to. Well, sort of. He was born
on the Appalachian American.
Yeah, he was born on the western flat end of the state, but he lived in the Appalachians too, so he gets to count. And when they first saw my flag behind me, he stood up and saluted. So my Tennessee flag, and he's on a mission to. He noticed my dragon flag the other day, and he's on a mission to find the correct. Phil, you'll know what I'm talking about. A anatomically correct flag of Wales. He has a lot of Welsh in his family too. So his mother's like, half or more, I guess, Welsh. And she always told me that. She said she was Welsh. Shelley Skywalker, good morning. Good to see you in here. Oh, your grandmother lives in Wyoming? What part? Shelley? I mean, there's a state out there that's got so few people, they probably know each other. I mean, we always joke about that because somebody will be from, some place like Atlanta or New York, and you say, hey, I know a guy there. Do you know so-and-so? Of course they don't. And, but out in Wyoming, they just might. You never know. Shelley, for Mark's edification, Shelley is a really, really good nature photographer. Pavilion, you know where that's at, Mark?
I know. Well, of course, we're a small town with really long streets.
That's Wyoming in general.
Oh, now she lives in Riverton. Pavilion's a better place. There's fewer folks. It's right in the middle of the res.
Oh,
right.
Is it?
Yep, Pavilion is, and then Riverton's on the edge.
Which reservation is that?
The Wind River Reservation.
Wind River, right?
So it's Eastern Shoshones and Northern Arapahoes.
Cool. Well, not cool, but cool. And I was saying something. Once again, I chased a squirrel down a hole and lost him. Pavilion's where I learned to ride a horse, she said. And, I know what I was saying. Shelley is really a good photographer. And if you ever you said you signed up on Instagram, look up Shelley Starwalker sometime, Mark, and check out some of her pictures. She's got.
I will do that.
And she just posted. In fact, she just posted the other day. Maybe yesterday, a picture of a trumpeter that's down there. She said they get a few there every year now. She lives up near where the country we spent a couple of days in, Sheboygan and Mackinac, up in that part of the state. So she's always going up. She has a bunch of pictures on her website that look just like a bunch of pictures I took when we were up there we were on the north side of the bridge, standing there looking across back towards Michigan, or not Michigan, the lower part of Michigan.
Right.
Looking across the lake there into the bridge. You remember when we went down there? Where the fish heads were.
Where the great big giant lake trout heads were laying on. Yeah.
Oh, wow, Shelley. She's 98. That's what good living in Wyoming will do. Clean air will do for you. That's great.
There were all those lady slipper flowers there.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a park or a protected area or something now. I can't remember. I've seen that on the map. It may have been then. I can't remember, but it seems like there's you know what? Can you hear me? My microphone's in the floor. I moved it so I could see something.
I can hear you.
Yeah, it works pretty good even down there. So, but I figure it's even better up here. The lady slipper, yes, Shelley. We thought that. I mean, we knew what they were, but they're pretty cool. And there was a bunch of them growing there when we were up there that year along the edge of the woods there. So, the best I remember. And we were on our way to the Boundary Waters. Mark and I, we were just reminding.
Well, Philip was on that trip too.
Yes, he was. I was going to say he'll remember it too. We were in the back of Mark and I were in the back of the truck reading Pat McManus. I forgot about that until Mark reminded me the other day, but we read a couple Pat McManus books all the way up there and back. And, that's been, God, I can't even remember what year that was. Probably remember.
Under a camper shell, and it was 9,000 degrees.
Yeah, it was we were under a camper top, but we weren't in an open bed pickup, but we were still in the back. We're packed in there with a bunch of camping gear and that kind of stuff. But anyway, check out everybody. If you haven't checked out Shelley's Instagram page, please do, because I'm impressed. She'll correct me, I'm sure, if I'm wrong, but she told me she just started really into photography a few years ago. And I think she's very accomplished for somebody that's not been in it. She's got a great eye for composition, and she gets a lot of really great bird shots, eagles, ospreys, that kind of stuff, and whatever else wildlife she can find. And of course, flowers and stuff too. Yeah, the Boundary Water Strip, Phil. And you need to check it out. She's good. Only 3 years. And that's amazing. Did you paint or draw before that, Shelley? Because you've got a great eye. I mean, your eye for composition and stuff, I think, is really good. I don't know. She might say it's the camera, but I don't. You have to know how to work the camera. You have to be able to compose pictures. And I know I've got a few that I think are really good, but I've got a lot that are really crappy. So, of course, that's why you shoot 10,000 shots of everything. Excuse me. So let's see what else we got I was going to discuss here this morning. Oh, I know what I was going to do. If everybody minds, I was going to read I have a public service. I put this down as a public service announcement. So this is my public service time for YouTube here. You just know, she just says she knows what she likes. Well, that helps. I mean, that does. There it is. There's her Instagram link, and you can click on that and put it in the background or something, and check them out later. Well, what you like is that certainly does help, and we got a couple of other photographers in the group that we know. Tina Marie out of New York, and Jenny Shepard, Ryan Shepard, or crap. Come on, brain, kick into gear. Anyway, she does a lot of child photography and photo portraits and things like that, and she does some wildlife stuff, I think. But she lives in a good place for that. That part of Michigan's still pretty wild and got a lot of wildlife and around the lakes and stuff. So she's good. So anyway, I'm going to do my public service announcement now. I hope you guys can bear with me, but we're going to read from the safety manual of Pat McManus, and the chapter is called The Modified Stationary Panic. And this should be a public service announcement, because if you've ever been in a strange place and panicked, or you've ever been really scared and panicked and didn't quite know what to do, this will help you next time you're in that situation. So let me read this chapter, and bear with me, folks, please. Oh, T. Marie's place, yes. Oh, anyway, let me get this off the screen for a moment. Okay, the modified stationary panic, which I'm sure most of us have been in at least once in our life. Brenda knows this one. This used to be one of Brenda's favorites, I do believe. Hey, Cherie, welcome back. You're here just in time for the public safety announcement. If I put it as a public safety announcement, maybe I can get some YouTube credit or I don't know. I'd like to think it maybe it'll eventually draw more people, but it probably runs more people off than brings. Anyway, according to this manual, which is this manual, every so often I read an article on how to survive when lost in the wilds. Now, see, that's something we all should know. You could be lost at Disney World, and that could be pretty wild. And I have to laugh. The experts who write these pieces know everything about survival, but next to nothing about getting lost. I can go there. I mean, I'm like a little bit like Daniel Boone. You know, he used to say he'd never been lost, but he'd been bewildered a day or two. I am an expert on getting lost. I've been lost in 9 different countries, 43 cities, 7 national forests, 4 national parks, countless parking lots, and one Amtrak passenger train. My wife claims I once got lost riding an elevator in a tall building. That is an unwarranted exaggeration based on my momentary confusion over the absence of a 13th floor. If you are a person with an inherent fear of heights, you want to make certain that all the floors are right where they're supposed to be, and you're not about to listen to a lot of lame excuses for an empty space between the 12th and 14th floors. That's added in parentheses there for more important. That's something you think about. It is, what's in that area right through there? Why is there not a floor there, and what's holding the 14th floor up? Since I have survived all of these experiences of being lost, it follows that I'm also something of an expert on survival. Consequently, out of my identification with and concern for that portion of humanity that frequently finds itself in the predicament of not knowing its way home from its left elbow, I have been motivated to publish the following compilation of field-tested tips on how we get lost. I have also included information on how to survive, and of equal interest, how to pass the time if you don't survive. Don't survive or don't find your way home. I'm not sure what he meant there. The most common method for getting lost starts with telling a hunting partner, I'll just cut down over the hill over here and meet you on the first road. I kind of know how that is. 9 times out of 10, the next road in the direction you chose is the Trans-Canadian Highway. That is, of course, unless you're in Canada, in which case it may well be a supply route to the Siberian reindeer farms. Another good method for getting lost in a quick and efficient manner is to rely on a companion who claims to have infallible sense of direction. Spin him a round or two, anytime, any place in the world, according to him, and he will automatically point toward home. Your first clue that his sense of direction is somewhat overrated comes when he says something like, "Hey, now that's weird. The sun is setting in the east." Yeah, you're in trouble if he says that. I was asked one time which way the sun set. They couldn't remember which one was east and west. There is, of course, an appropriate response to such a statement. Unfortunately, it may result in a long jail term. Oh, I have to laugh. Nobody else may, but I have got to laugh. I can't help it. I'm a little bit like Mickey's Magic Meg when she tells her dad jokes. She laughs as harder than anybody, and it's her joke. My favorite method for getting lost is daydreaming. I'll be trailing a deer whose tracks are so old pine seedlings will have sprouted in them. When I have to count the growth rings on a tree to determine how fresh a set of tracks is, my interest in the hunt begins to wane. Pretty soon I'm daydreaming. I imagine myself shooting a trophy buck. Then I unsheath my knife, dress him out, and drag him back to camp where my hunting companions go wild with envy and astonishment. Remember, he's daydreaming. Would you look at the size of that buck Pat got? Man, where did you ever get a beauty like that? Just tracked him down, I say. He was a smart one, too, but ever so often he made the mistake of bending a blade of grass the wrong way. The wind changed and spooked him, though, and I had to drop him on the dead run at 900 yards. And that's where it ends. And I'll look around and I'll be lost. The last time I had looked, I was hunting in a pine woods on a mountain. Now I'll be so deep in the swamp, the wildlife is a couple of stages back on the scale of evolution. It's bad enough being lost without having to put up with a bunch of feathered lizards trying to fly. Undoubtedly, the surest way to get lost is to venture into the woods as a member of a group. Sooner or later, one of the boys, on the pretext of offering up a riddle, says, "Hey guys, I'll bet none of you can tell me which direction the car is." Ha 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 ha. The ha ha is tacked on to imply that he knows the right direction, but truth is he couldn't tell you from a kidney stone. Everyone now points firmly and with great authority in a different direction. In every such case, the most forceful personality in the group gets his way. The effectiveness of this method arises out of the fact that the most forceful personality usually turns out to rank on intelligence scale somewhere between sage hens and bowling balls. He is also an accomplished magician. With a wave of his arm and magic words, the car's just over the next rise, he can make the whole bunch of you vanish for 3 days. While the process of becoming lost is usually a lot of fun, the entertainment value diminishes rapidly once the act is accomplished. The first small twinges of fear, however, do not last long and are soon replaced by waves of terror. There is also a sense of general disorientation, the first symptom of which is confusion about which side of your head your face is on. 2 questions immediately occur to the lost outdoorsman. What shall I do now? And why didn't I stick with golf? Well, we know why. I disagree sharply with most survival experts on what the lost person should do first. Most of them start out by saying some fool thing like the first rule of survival is don't panic. Well, everyone who has ever been lost knows that kind of advice is complete nonsense. They might as well tell you don't sweat or don't get goosebumps all over your body. Survival experts are apparently such calm, rational people themselves that they assume a lost person spends considerable time deliberating the question of whether he should panic. Let's see, the first thing I'll do is panic, and then I'll check to see on which side of the trees the moss is growing. It doesn't work that way. First of all, one is either a panicker or one isn't. And the occasion of being lost is no time to start fretting about a flaw in one's character. My own theory holds that it is best if one is a panicker to go ahead and get the panic out of the system as quickly as possible. That makes sense. Kind of like yanking a bandage off. You might as well go ahead and do it. And then I lost place. Holding panic in may cause severe psychological disorders and even stomach cramps and baldness. Also, the impacted panic may break loose at a later date, if there is a later date, and cause one to sprint across the shopping mall yelling, "Help, help!" at the top of his lungs. Shopping malls being what they are, no one would probably notice, but it might be embarrassing anyway. Over the years, I've been involved in several dozen panics. Now, this is where the really important part comes, so pay attention. Usually as a participant, sometimes simply as an observer. Most of my panics have been of a solitary nature, but on several occasions I have organized and led group panics, one of which had involved 20-some people. In that instance, a utility company took advantage of the swath we cut through the forest and built a power line along it. That saves a lot of tree clearing. Back in the earlier days of my panicking, I utilized what is known technically as the full-bore linear panic, or FBLP. This is where you run flat out in a straight line until the course of your panic is deflected by a large rock or tree, after which you get up and sprint off in a new direction. The FBLP, I actually have known somebody that kind of was like this. The FBLP is also popularly referred to as a ricochet or pinball panic, or sometimes simply as going bananas. Once an FBLP is underway, there is no stopping it. It gains momentum in every stride, and the participants get so caught up in it, they forget the reason for holding it in the first place. They'll panic right out of the woods onto a road, down the road, through a town, and back into the woods all the time, picking up speed. One time when we were kids, my friend Wretch, and yes, that's his buddy Wretch, R-E-T-C-H, and I panicked right through a logging crew, and the loggers dropped what they were doing and ran along with us under the impression we were being pursued by something. When they found out we were doing was panicking, they fell back cursing and returned to their job. This tendency of panic is to feed upon itself, gives it ever-increasing momentum and occasionally indigestion. Although it will do absolutely no good, I must advise against undertaking a full-bore linear panic, unless, of course, one is equipped with a stout heart, a 3-day supply of food, and a valid passport. Instead, I recommend the stationary, or what I call the modified panic. It offers the same therapeutic effect and subsides after a few minutes with none of the FBLP's adverse side effects, such as making your life insurance company break out in bad rash. The stationary panic first came to my attention one time when a large but harmless snake slithered across a trail a couple of yards ahead of my wife. I've seen this panic executed many times. Recently, I saw it executed on YouTube. I don't know how many of you folks saw this, but Myers and the Mouse, Kelly and Yvonne were at, I think they were at Universal in Florida, and they stepped out. She started to step out of this boat, and across in front of her slithered the water snake. I mean, just right there on the boardwalk with all these people walking by, it just came out from under something and headed to the water, I'm sure. And I've never, that's one of the few times I know it's been recorded on tape or on film or on digitally, I guess now, because she just about pushed Kelly out of the boat. Kelly was her husband. She just about pushed Kelly out of the boat trying to get back. And he kept trying to get her to get out because he thought there was something. And she said, "I ain't going out." She was no way in heck she was going to go out of that boat as long as that snake was out there. And she was definitely displaying signs of stationary panic. But she was about to go full bore linear panic because I expect to see her bounce off the wall there just any moment. If you've never seen that, was it at SeaWorld? Okay, Shelley. That's Brenda used to be a panicker. Yes, Brenda did used to be a panicker, I must say. Living with me has either helped that or worsened that. I'm not sure which. So I've given her many reasons to panic. Oh, she did? Okay. She saw 2 that day. Well, that's pretty wild. You don't usually see them when there's that many people around, but when you're in Florida, you might as well expect that. If it's not a snake, it's a gator. So, because they're everywhere. Okay. Anyway, that was, for somebody like me, that was kind of funny. I didn't tell her that, but okay. Let's see here. Back to the earlier days. I gotta figure out where I was at now since I came up for that side note. Although it will do absolutely no good, I must advise against that. Stationary panic first came to my attention one time when a large but harmless snake slithered across the trail a couple of yards ahead of my wife. She made a high-pitched chittering sound and began jumping up and down and flailing the air with her arms. That's kind of what Mama Mouse did. It was the most impressive performance, particularly since each jump was approximately a foot high and her backpack happened to be the one with the tent in it. The only adverse side effect to the stationary panic was that the lone witness to the spectacle could not help laughing every time he thought about it. A reaction quickly remedied, however, by his sleeping most of the night outside the tent in a driving rainstorm. So, yeah, that's, if it's your wife that's doing the stationary panic, man, I recommend you don't point it out too often, because you could end up on the couch or worse. Hang on a minute. My stupid feet have moved something here. I need to move back. My stupid feet, because one of them I can't control, and it does stupid things all the time. Although I immediately perceived the advantage of this form of panic, I could not imagine myself bouncing up and down, flailing my arms, and chittering like an angry squirrel, particularly in front of the rough company with whom I usually find myself in a predicament requiring a panic. Thus, it came about that I invented the modified stationary panic, or MSP. And that's probably my recommendation for most people. The key to the MSP is not to bounce up and down in a monotonous fashion, but to vary the steps so that it appears to be a sort of folk dance. You can make up your own steps, but I highly recommend throwing in a couple of Russian squat kicks. The chittering sound should be replaced by an Austrian drinking song shouted out at the top of your voice. The MSP is particularly appropriate for group panics. There are a few sights so inspiring as a group of lost hunters, arms entwined, dancing and singing for all they're worth as night closes in upon them. We've never tried that one, Mark. I don't think I've ever been a part of that kind of group stationary panic. Once you have established the fact that you are, this might be a longer chapter than I realized. A couple more pages. It's that indeed lost and have performed the perfunctory modified panic, you should get started right away on the business of surviving. Many survival experts recommend that you first determine on which side of the tree the moss is growing. I'm not sure why this is, but I suppose it's because by the time you get hungry enough to eat moss, you will want to know where to find it in a hurry. If you think you may have to spend the night in the woods, you may wish to fashion some form of temporary shelter. For one night, a tree with good thick foliage will serve the purpose. Thick foliage will help keep the rain off and reduces the chance of falling out of the tree. Here you thought he was going to sleep under the tree, didn't you? After a day or two, it is probably a good idea to build a more permanent shelter, such as a lean-to. A very nice lean-to can be made out of large slabs of bark, pried from a dead cedar, pine, or tamarack, and leaned against the trunk of an upright tree. If you have a tendency to walk in your sleep, the lean-to should not be more than 15 feet from the ground. After a couple of weeks, it might be a good idea to add some simple furnishings and pictures. If one's going to be there a while, you might as well make it homey. I think I'll stop there for today. That's not quite to the end. There's a couple more pages, but you can see what a benefit that an experienced outdoorsman like Patrick S. McManus could be to the young wannabe woods person, because everybody needs to know how to panic in the proper manner, and how to survive once you're lost out in the woods. I don't know if I would give Pat's advice or not, but oops, my cup warmer has gone off. 1 minute there. I was dry, which coffee defeats the purpose of giving you a wet mouth because it just dries you bad up. Yeah, Shelley, that's what he said. Eat moss. And I guess I could finish if anybody wants to hear the rest. I'd be glad to read it. I feel like I may bore people with my reading, but for some of us, I won't mention any names. It's pretty good reading and somewhat necessary in the evolution of your. She used to watch Survivor, man. I don't know if I've seen that, Shelley. If you're.
That's that Les Stroud guy, I think, out of Canada.
Oh, okay. If you're going to if you spend any time in the woods and spend any time out wandering the mountains or the hills, and it's good to know these things because you never know when you're going to crawl through a thicket of laurel bushes and shrubs and come up on a black bear looking you going through the laurel bushes in the opposite direction. Right, Mark?
That's correct.
We were bow hunting one time.
When you think it's a gray squirrel that needs shooting or something.
Yeah, Mark kind of broke through. Les Stroud, Mark. Shelley agreed. We were bow hunting in an area that used to be called California Fields up in East Tennessee, and it was pretty thick in places. And Mark was crawling through a bunch of. We'd seen a couple bears that day already. We had one. I think that was the day we had one cross the road in front of us. And
look a bear.
I think, look a bear. And he went through that during that time period. We ran into several bears in the woods. I had the kids up in the mountains, up on the not beauty spot, but Unaka one time, and we were picking blueberries one day, or I think blueberries were out, and we were I'd actually already told Brenda and the girls to kind of keep an eye open because that's one thing about blueberries. Bears like them at least as much, if not more, than people do. So I walked around a little bunch, and something right in front of me in the brush jumped up and grunted and took off the other direction. I didn't actually see it, but I'm pretty sure what it was. So I herded the kids back towards the car before the panic set in. Tina said, my husband watches that. I guarantee he will never get lost in the woods, though. Okay. No, I didn't say we were naked picking blackberries, Shelley.
We're on Unaka Mountain.
Unaka, Unaka, I believe is how it's spelled. Unaka Mountain. That's a wilderness area up there now. I think I was telling you it was something the other day, but I couldn't remember what. But I think it's a designated wilderness area, which there aren't that many back east, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, naked would be all right for the bear, Shelley, but if you're also a fan of Larson, the guy that wrote the original, what was the cartoon strip?
The Far Side.
Far Side, yes. Some of my favorite Far Sides were about bears, and he had one where the campers were wrapped up in their sleeping bags, and the bears looked at them and said, "Oh, look, it's like jelly rolls, soft on the outside, creamy in the middle," or something like that. I love that guy. Man, his stuff was funny. And what were we talking about was funny the other day? Since Mark and I have been talking again, we've spent several hours on the telephone. Funny how time flies when you're having fun. All ready for the bear. Yeah, you would have been all ready for the bear if you were naked up there in the woods. That's one thing about being a nudist or naked, running around naturist or whatever. And this crazy, pardon my language, that crazy ass show on TV where they're naked and afraid or whatever, and they turn two naked people loose in the middle of nowhere and try to, I guess, find their way to survive. And I'm thinking, why do you have to turn them loose naked? They're already, I lived growing up at work, going through the woods, either at a panic speed or just normal. And let me tell you something about the woods and the fields. They're full of briars and stickers. And even back east, if you go out west, it's even worse. Everything out there stings. What we used to say, stings, bites, or pokes, or sticks, and or bites. I don't know how we used to say that, but back east you got greenbriers to grow through, and let me tell you something about a greenbrier. You ain't never been had till you've been had by a greenbrier vine, and it saws halfway through your ankle before you can get shed of it. The blackberry vines are thick, and if it's not that, there's just all kinds of other things out there that will eat you up. And why would you want to turn somebody loose in that and expect them to survive these days, unless they were a survivalist or something to begin? Anyway, I've never actually watched the show. I've just seen it advertised, and I just sat there and shake my head, because nobody in their right mind would do that. I mean, you need a good gun, a rifle, some lead, some balls, some powder. I mean, you need to have a few things with you: a good knife, a tomahawk, or a camp axe. I mean, you got to have something. And I'll be willing to bet you that none of them people do what?
Shelly said ticks and mosquitoes.
Oh yeah, not to mention the bugs. And I'd be willing to bet you that not one of them people knows how to. What?
I said leeches and moose flies.
Yeah, oh yeah. Not to mention the no-sims and such as that. But I bet you none of them know how to nap out a knife of flint. What do you bet?
Oh, there's been a few of them that do.
Oh, do they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good to know some of them can. That's another hobby of Mark's. He's taking up flint napping. Probably some stories that I'd love to tell that maybe I shouldn't, but they out in his country you can find all kinds of stuff. And which reminds me, do you guys go fossil hunting anymore? I mean, you live near a big
yeah, they're everywhere here. I mean, everywhere.
And there are a lot of mammals too, right? Didn't you tell
mammals
me that one time?
Mammals and crocs. Caitlin found a 15-foot long crocodile.
Really?
Yeah. And then she found a turtle that's probably 2.5 or 3 feet in diameter. And yeah, so there's plenty of that stuff out here.
When you say she found them, were they in a protected area, or is it something that could be?
No, they're still there. They're on BLM land. They're still in place.
So technically, they are protected. Then, I mean,
yeah, because
federal property.
BLM has rules that you can collect. I think invertebrates and plants, but if it's a vertebrate, you got to leave it there. But anyway, they're in the rock. You'd have to chip them out.
Oh, I know. I just wondered if, with her job, if it had ever come to the point where they were actually trying to locate them and remove some. That's cool.
Well, we tried to get them to excavate that croc because he's eroding away, and eventually he will be gone.
He will be gone. Yeah.
We never could get anybody to come actually do anything.
Well, that's another thing, and I never even thought about this growing up, because here's how my mind works: is if I find a fossil, especially if I found something like that, I would want to, I get excited because I want to show it to people. I'd like to see it visited, not necessarily spoil an area by having people there, but, I think stuff like that it has a value, but I don't think the value should be dollars. But there's a whole industry out there now, I guess, of people, and a lot of them are out west, that hunt dinosaur fossils and sell them on their property. If they can find them on their property, and they get a lot of money for some of them.
And that's back that's a big deal in eastern Wyoming, where it's mostly private land.
Right.
And ranchers have figured out that they can supplement their income by selling fossils.
Yeah.
And a lot of them make more money on stone bones than they do on their cows. So
that's pretty wild, isn't it?
It is.
There is a TV show for that too, and I've watched a couple of times just to see what they were doing. And the guys are ranchers, and they talk about that's what they do. And if they can find them and get them out of the ground, then they spend their winters when they can't ranch as much, or when they're more indoors because of weather. That's when they work on the bones and stuff to get them ready to sell. And I mean, it's full skeleton of some dinosaurs might be millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I think that T-Rex Susie or whatever they called her, I think she brought about $25 million. But that was the first full T-Rex I believe they'd ever found, complete or mostly complete.
Right.
You're up in Michigan, Kay, and you find, right, that's let me back up here. Oh, that's great. I had a cat that would scoop it. Who's saying that? Kay. She said something about her cats. Opposable thumbs. Yeah, Phil said wait till bears get opposable thumbs. He was talking about that. Yeah, if bears get opposable thumbs, friends, we're in trouble. They will take over. We have cats that like to drink, and we have one that kind of scoops the water up with his paw and out of the sink and drinks off his paw. It's funny. What was that? Well, I don't know which one else was saying something. I was about to say something, or you were one. But anyway, these ranchers talk about being able to supplement, and if you get a couple $1 million for a fossil, you're pretty good shape if you're a rancher, I would say, unless you really into something big money. That should last you for a couple of years anyway.
You'd be set for a spell.
Oh, I know what I was getting ready to say. Shelley, that's cool, interesting. What do you find when you say ocean fossils? Mark introduced me to fossil finding, probably more so than anybody. When we used to go to Friendship in Indiana, there's a creek there along where the primitive camping area was. A small creek that fed into a bigger creek down the way there a bit. And Mark told me before I ever went there the first time that he would about guarantee me that I could not pick up a rock out of that creek that did not have a fossil in it or was not a fossil. And he was right. That creek was absolutely full if it was natural. Now, they dumped some gravel in it in a couple of places. You couldn't count that because that was not the same kind of rock. You could tell. But that creek was absolutely full of bipod fossils. And it was all pretty much that's what was there. I don't know. Did you ever find anything else? I mean, we always hoped we'd find a fish or a trilobite or something like that.
It was all too old for that. There weren't any fish. It was there should have been trilobites there, but we never found them. But lots of corals and horn corals, brain coral, and those bivalve mollusks, but there weren't vertebrates when that was fossilized. So, but every rock in that whole southeast Indiana country and southwestern Ohio is just, you can't pick up a rock that's not a fossil. It's crazy.
It's pretty cool until you realize they're all the same. But you could find those bivalves he's talking about, the little clams or whatever you want to call them. They were complete. They were fossilized, and they were, you could flip. A lot of times they're flat. They get flattened out over time by the pressure of all the mud and muck and other fossils on top of them. And over time they flatten out. But you could find some that were perfectly shaped that I guess got full of mud or something and got mashed down, and they didn't crush flat. And they would just be, they weren't very big, but they would just be perfect little examples of the bivalves of that era, that eon, that whatever time period it was in history. And I thought that was really cool. we always looked for some, picked some up, even if they were the same things all the time. But you could always find, a better one. And I remember one time we went up there, up near the shooting range area, where there was a big, a clay bank had eroded some, and we were looking, we thought about digging in that, but you could scrape rocks out of that too, and we could pick. Do you remember that? We could kind of get some out of that bank. It was over the creek. It was just on the creek, but it was a bank that had sloughed off some, and there were fossils in there. You want to go find euperlites? Oh, that would be cool, Shelley. That stuff that's on the Upper Peninsula. Is that why they're euperlites? If I'm correct, that they're called eupers up there. When you're from the UP, you're a euper. At least I know they use that expression anyway. Let me see if I've missed anything. Petrovsky, Petrovsky stones. Oh, that's what she finds. That's what Shelley says she finds in Upper Michigan. Coral fossils. Mark, you know, I don't know what a Petrovsky stone is. You might. Is that a plant?
Don't know. Yeah, I see it. I don't know.
I would like to find something like that too. I mean, I'd like to find some of that really cool stuff. I mean, I would. I've seen fish. I have seen some flat fishes. We went to another interesting thing for me as far as that goes. North of here a little ways, along the edge of the Cumberland Plateau, where Kentucky and Tennessee meet up. I went up there on a school trip, a UT trip one time to look at some reclaimed mines and to talk about habitat for wildlife, mostly birds and stuff up there. And actually, that bunch was they were putting in some trees that we weren't allowed to plant, but they were putting in some autumn olive and stuff like that we couldn't plant back here anymore because they're so invasive. But anyway, they were putting new trees and bushes and shrubs and all kinds of things over these reclaimed benches and surface mine areas. But I started looking around and picking up stuff off the ground, and there were tons in this one area that there was a lot of busted rock of big plant stems and that kind of fossils. You know, I picked up one, and I've had it somewhere. I don't know if I still have it here, but it was, you know, yay long, a solid piece. And it was almost perfectly round, and it was a fossil. You could fossilize fern trunk or tree trunk or whatever there were in that period. Plants, anyway, that were smooth. You could see all the well, I can't remember the word of that, but, you know, the little openings and things on the cells of the outer skin. It was really, really sharp, and but they were everywhere. That's the most I'd ever found any place in Tennessee that was like that. And I'm sure it might come down a little bit further, but it was all in that area where they blasted. And what was this? We did a Christmas here. Tina or Kay has something here. She said we did a Christmas joke with my dad. Things that were older than dad. Things that were older than dad. I bought him a replica of a saber-toothed cat. One of my brothers gave him dirt. One gave him bullets from the Civil War. That's kind of cool. Now, Mark, if I'm not mistaken, didn't you tell me you guys found some saber-tooth stuff in a place out there, you and Caitlin, maybe years ago?
I got a buddy that found one, and he destroyed it trying to get it out.
No. Oh, that's not good.
It wasn't the big one. It wasn't the big Smilodon, the great big cat, but it was one of the smaller, earlier ones.
Oh, I bet you do. Shelley says there's a quarry behind her house, so now she has lots of rocks.
Yeah,
I'd be out there looking too. I have to admit, I love to explore something like that, just because, especially if I start finding things. Last brother gave me replicas of fossils. Well, I've heard tell of people that did that and made stuff like Indian arrowheads, for example, would make a new one and be out with archaeologists and throw it on the ground, and the archaeologists get all excited because they think they found something.
That's never happened.
Well, I've heard it has. Now, I never would do that.
No, it hasn't.
Well, I'm afraid I think it has happened. So, so they played tricks. Some people have played that kind of trick on people. If I'd had some, that's what I should have done. I should have got me some of those mussels and things and salted the ground up around Norris. If I wanted to keep something from happening, that would have done it right there. Oh, me. Let's see. Have I missed anything? Oh, there's a town up there, Phil says, called that. Well, so I don't know how it's pronounced, but so I'm probably butchering the name. Petoskey is what it looks like to me. Maybe that's right. Maybe it's not. But Shelley, you can tell me you can say yes or no if I'm wrong. But I was trying to think. It made me think of something else, but it was a little bit more of a scare. They had something to do with the snake. Well, that'll come back around. But another thing Mark and I've done in our lifetimes, he's done a lot more of it, was what they used to call herping down in New Mexico. We'd go out at night and drive some of the back roads, or, well, pretty much any road. If it was paved, it was better because you could see them better, and catch snakes. See what kind of, a BMW rally up there. That's cool, Phil. We'd catch herps, which is herpetology, which is like the study of reptiles, I guess, in general. But we'd catch all kinds of poisonous and non-poisonous snakes out there. I was amazed at some of the things you guys picked up, and we picked up when I was out there a time or two. And little earth snakes that you never see, never heard of, that are most of the time burrowed into the ground, kind of like not exactly like a ringneck snake or something, but close. And we've got a couple things like that back here. I think there's a brown mud snake back in some parts of this country that you rarely ever see. And then there's, of course, ringneck snakes that never get very big, but I think about the longest one I've ever seen. The one Jennifer found one time, and we kept it here at the house for a while, and it would eat earthworms. We could get a night crawler and feed it, and it would look like it'd eat a hot dog or something. It was so big, but it would swallow the whole thing and be content. But they were kind of neat little snakes. And Jennifer picked that one up and brought it to me one day. Or maybe and we had a garter snake. Maybe he would also eat them. He would eat a little bit of anything if you dropped it in there. I had a black snake I call Longfellow. I don't know if you remember him or not. I don't know if you remember. It's when we lived in Smyrna, by the Stones River and the creek, the Stewart Creek and all that. And we had was that right? Yeah, that's right. Right, Brenda? Am I wrong or am I telling a story here? Anyway, I had this black snake and I named him Longfellow, and he grew from about 2 feet up over 3 feet. I took him, turned him loose in the Smokies. I figured that'd be a safe place for him. Maybe nobody turned him loose in a barn up there, which I guess was kind of like introducing, but it was native species, so I didn't figure it'd hurt anything, and it probably had plenty of mice to eat. So, but he was a pretty calm snake. I've had a couple of snakes in my life, a couple of Western. I had king snakes. I've had a couple of king snakes. I had one that was farm raised. It was an albino. Brenda bought me, and that was kind of a cool animal, but he never settled down. A lot of wild snakes actually settled down faster than he did. He was always a little spooky, and I had a feeling it's because of the breeding they were doing to create albinos. But I've had several wild snakes that after I've handled them for a little while are perfectly calm. They just black rats and king snakes. The ones we have back here are fun. How big did your ball python get, Shelley? Just curious. She has garter snakes and ribbon snakes in her yard. Yeah, there probably are others up that way, but you're about to get to the upper edge because it gets where it's getting too cold, you don't see too many up there. 4 feet? I don't know how big they get. I guess it depends on what particular ball. I think there's a couple of species of ball pythons, but they don't get big. They don't get as big and long as those other ones do, reticulateds and whatever that world's biggest snake is. It gets 20 or 30 feet long or more.
You had a big old spider once too, as I recall.
Yeah, and I've talked about that. We had a tarantula.
We caught it in New Mexico or somewhere.
Yeah, we did. We caught it in New Mexico. I had that for quite a while. Somewhere around here, I've still got a shed. She would shed her outer exoskeleton, and when you looked at it, it was just. You had fangs and the whole bit were on the skeleton. She said everything, and it was just perfectly, all there. I think I've still got that in a jar.
You've defended them successfully in court.
Yes, I have. Did you see that stream? Spiders against the people.
That was funny.
How'd you like that wig, Brenda? I
love
that wig.
I love that.
There probably a day when you never seen me in something pink, but that was
I
all we
laughed
had.
till I near wet myself.
Yeah, I don't know how many of you actually watched that stream, but go to the Lynn Project sometime and watch the. She has it on her website. It's the spiders versus the people, and I was defending the spider side, and she was defending the people side. And unfortunately, they had mostly what they had on their side is fear and arachnophobia, which I real. Oh, another dog. Oh, that's your Ridgeback.
That's my Vizsla.
Oh, Vizsla. You don't have a Ridgeback. I'm sorry, Vizsla. Now, do you hunt with her or him?
Yep. She's my grouse dog.
Is she a pointer or is she flush?
They're pointers.
That's what I thought. I meant to ask you that the other day, but I thought she was.
They're really closely related to Weimaraners.
Yeah, but they're not as big.
They're not gray. They're red.
They don't get quite as big as a Weimaraner, do they?
They're from Hungary. No, not quite as big.
I've seen them in dog shows and things, and I always thought they were kind of neat dogs.
She's a pretty good girl. I've had better bird dogs, but not better buddies. So
yeah, that's cool. I knew you used to have you used to have some kind of spaniels, didn't you, or German pointers or something? Something long haired English
pointers. Okay, go on.
You got, what did you tell me? You got 6 or 7 dogs, or 4 or 5 dogs?
Go catch some. Yeah, 5. 5 dogs, 31 chickens, 10 horses, and a mule.
Hey, now, speaking of mules, I told you I've been reading up on mules, and I'm finding that the whole mule thing is fascinating, far more than I ever imagined. I kind of knew that there was some neat stuff there, but I never had read about it much. And reading this book about the Oregon Trail, the guy who did the Oregon Trail, has got me looking at mules. And I know you've mentioned that you guys were trying to find, or somebody had a big jack. What's the name of them? Man, I tell you what, my mind is soup today. Mammoth Jack. Didn't you say you guys had a Mammoth Jack, or knew somebody that did? I think he's looking for photographic evidence, perhaps. There's a big mule show in Tennessee, in Columbia, Tennessee, called Columbia Mule Days. And what did you find? What did you get?
Oh, my wife was calling from California.
You need to take a call. You can step aside for a minute.
No, I'm good. I told her we were talking. She needed to hush up.
Well, now she's welcome to join the conversation.
Well, she's in San Francisco.
Well, that's okay. She can still join the conversation.
She's out there picking flowers for my beard. Because I don't have any hair to put it in.
Well, that's because you shaved it all off, protecting your head. Don't want to give the Blackfoot anything to scalp. I don't want
the Blackfoot to have my hair.
That comes from a movie, folks. If you've never seen The Mountain Man, no, that's Jeremiah Johnson. You might not, but if you've seen the movie Jeremiah Johnson with Robert Redford in it, there's a guy in there named Dale Pugh, and he rides up and he's shaved bald, and he explains that that's because he don't want to have if he don't have any hair, they can't scalp him. So he decided that was the way to go until later on in life, and he let his hair grow, and Jeremiah Johnson met him again. He only met him twice in the movie. And the first time he hung with him a little bit, but he still only met him twice in the movie. And he let it grow, and I can't remember what he said. He figured it was time to either give it up. He figured it was time to let it grow and take his chances or something. I don't remember now. But he was quite the character in that movie. And that made me lose my chain of thought again. But let's see here. Brenda's explaining something. Amy was talking about, and Shelley says her roommate had a rose tarantula. I can't remember where those are those Mexican too? I can't remember. I had a red leg, or a red tarantula, they call them. out south from the southwest and part of Mexico. I'm not sure whether Danny likes or hates snakes, but either way, he has very strong feelings. Okay, I don't know if I missed something there or not, but I'm not sure if Tina's saying that she don't really have any love for snakes. And here Brenda says, spiders, yuck. And my roommate had a rooster. I said that one. Let's see. I've been here listening. Brenda says our snake Longfellow would get loose at night and take off down the hall. And Jennifer could see him from her bedroom. She would yell, "Mom or Dad, Longfellow's out again." That's true. And they had trouble on the wood floor, and it was kind of slippery, and he'd kind of squiggle down through there. And that garter snake we had did that too a couple of times. And actually, here she's talking about it. No, that's a different story. That albino snake we had, I moved. That was during the time period when I lost my job, went back to school, and we moved back to East Tennessee. And my albino snake was at their house for a little while, and he escaped, which is another bad thing about king snakes. They are extremely good snake escape artists. And I don't know if she ever told her mom and dad that or not, but he got out in their house. So we don't know whatever happened to him. We never found him. She looked everywhere for him, and I looked when I was up there, and we don't know. I just always figured he got out. If he got out of the house, he probably didn't live very long because, he stood out kind of. He was white and yellow. So I doubt if he, I'm sure something got him, but some big red-tailed hawk swooped down and made biscuits out of him. Let's see. I saw something else here about a room. I told my roommate if she ever got loose, I was not held responsible if anything happened to her. They must have been the spider. Oh, they're really not that. Their tarantulas have a bad name because of movies and stuff. Yeah, Shelly, it did. I've had a few people come in and see the snake and back up out the door. There was an old guy in our Boy Scouts. It was one of the fathers of one of the scouts that was my age that I went to school with and stuff. And he was probably the most deathly afraid of snakes of anybody I've ever met. I mean, he was afraid of them to the point of he would do anything to escape or kill the snake. He got beyond reason. I think there's a word for that I can't think of right now. And I remember being on a camping trip one time, and some of us were around the fire or whatever. Maybe we were cooking, maybe we were just sitting there talking. And one of the younger scouts came up from the river. In fact, we were down at Davy Crockett's birthplace, and Mr. Odell was his name. Mr. Odell, before we even knew anything was going on, he jumped up and ran to his truck, and he came back part way with a shovel. He had a shovel in his hand, holding it like a weapon, and he started talking. He was shaking. He said, "Don't you bring that up here." We turned around, and the kid had picked up a garter snake or something. I think it was dead, and he was bringing it in to either show off or ID or something. And Mr. Odell saw him coming, and he said, "I don't care if it's alive or dead." He said, "You do not bring that any closer." He said, "I will take this shovel to you." And he meant it. And he used to tell a story about going to a snake handling church, and first thing he wanted to know was where the back door was. And if there wasn't one, where would you think they would like to have one? Because he was about ready to go through the wall. But
it ain't every place that's got snake handling churches.
No, it's not. We can talk freely. I mean, we had them.
We happen to be from that country, but most people are not.
Yeah, a lot of people probably don't even think that's a real thing, but let me tell you, it is
It's a real deal.
Yeah, Tina, I know you'll never agree with me about spiders, but I'm sorry, but critters have a purpose too. They just maybe ain't quite our purpose, but they eat a lot of bugs now. They eat a lot of bugs, so you kind of gotta.
We'd be sad if they weren't around.
That's what I've told people. You can't. If we didn't have some bugs and things, we'd be in real trouble from the other bugs. Because, I don't know if people realize this, but insects are could populate the earth in no time if they didn't have any, any predators and had plenty to eat. I've seen the numbers one time. They're very rapid populators. But then we had snake. There was an article a few years back here from about a guy again up north of here, somewhere around Campbell County, and that's what he went out and hunted snakes for a church up there. Church is maybe, and he'd pick up timber rattlers and copperheads.
Yep.
And of course up here we didn't have any water moccasins, although everybody says we do. But I don't know if he did it for pay or if he did it because he went to church there, but he would gather snakes for the church, the snake handling churches of that area, which are usually pretty kind of remote and they don't talk about it a lot, but they're up there. Kentucky's got them, West Virginia's got some, I'm sure. And they seem to mostly be concentrated in the mountains or the Cumberlands or the Appalachians, which technically is part of the Cumberlands are technically part of the Appalachian chain, but it's usually up in that country where you find those kind of churches. Oh, Shelly says she's got a spider at the kitchen sink that's been catching flies.
I need one right now. I just missed a big old fly, but I need a spider on the table right now.
I just read a book. Brendan and I just listened to a book when we were in the car riding around. It was one of Pat McManus's murder mysteries. And they're actually pretty good reading. They're funny in his own subtle humor, how he writes. But he has in the story, he has a fly in his office, or a spider in his office. and every morning if he can catch one in the office, he'll catch a fly, and he'll take it over by the window and peck on the window or do something, and the spider will come running out. And he'll feed that fly to the spider, trained spider, kind of like the trained bluegill I was telling you about. So, and every morning he does that. So when he's out solving a mystery, he gets his secretary to do it. And she's kind of squeamish and don't much care for it, but she does it. And then they get a new deputy in one day, and Bo Tully is the sheriff's name in those books. And Bo comes back to the office, and the deputy's all proud. He said, "Hey, I found a brown kill your ass spider or something in your office there." He said, "Don't worry, I killed it for you." And he was chest falling because that was his favorite spider. John Wayne Pumpkin Brown.
John Wayne Pumpkin Brown.
Was snake bit at a church on US 25, right beside the Cumberland Gap, and he was from Parrotsville, Tennessee. Yeah, Mr. Odell definitely did a stationary panic, Brenda. That's true. I should have used that as an example. But he was also known to do the full-bore linear panics for snakes. He was a good example of panics. I tell you, when it came to snakes, he was having nothing to do with them. We found a little corn snake one time. It was maybe 12 or 18 inches long. I can't remember now. At Nashville at the airport one day at our hangar, and where we worked on the airplanes, and we had this garage door thing that they could open up in the back of that hangar to get some air through there, because in the summertime there was no air in that hangar. It was blocked off and mostly got afternoon sun, which just made it worse. We had one big opening, so maybe some air came in, but not much. So anyway, they put this garage door in the back to see if they could get a breeze through there. So we would sit out there on the stoop of the garage, the door. We'd open it up and sit on there's like a plank, stick 2x8 or something on the bottom where it came down, and we'd sit on that. And while we were taking breaks and stuff, shooting the breeze, and I had that. It was lunch break one day, and Phil might remember this. And I had this snake in my hand. And we were sitting there talking, and I was looking at the snake, and other people were talking about the snake or whatever. A couple of people said, "You're crazy." He said, "You messing with snakes," but they were all sitting there. Nobody was panicking. And all of a sudden, the boss, the shop foreman / I guess he was a service manager, walked up behind us, and he laid his hand on my shoulder. And I remember starting to scoot over to let him out the door. He, step out over the board, and suddenly he was gone. And I didn't see it because I wasn't looking at him. I had my back to him, but the other people that saw him said he glanced down and saw that snake and was out of there. I mean, full bore linear panic to the other side of the hangar, and he came creeping. I think he came back over later and said, I'm not coming over there, boys. He said, no, as long as that snake's over there. And I didn't know he was that afraid of snakes. I just wasn't thinking anything about people being afraid of snakes at that moment. And you just never know. I don't know if Phil will remember this or not, but I was going over to his house when he and another buddy of ours lived in a duplex in Smyrna, Tennessee. I was in my little black pickup truck. It was still pretty new then. And I was by myself, and I was going down this street to his house, and a big old corn snake, biggest one I've ever seen in that part of the state, was crossing the road. So what did I do? Did I let it pass? Did I run over it, make sure it was dead? No, I jumped out of the truck and caught it. And picked it up, and it was pretty good snake. I don't know, Phil, I don't know if you remember that. I think I brought it over to your place, and then I let it go in the woods or something. I didn't keep it. But when I was driving to his house, I was trying to hold it in one hand and drive with the other. Plus, I had a straight shift. And he got his back end underneath my seat and got around something under there and just about got under there, and I couldn't get him out. I thought I might have to pull the seat out of the truck just to get him out from under there because he was all wound up. But I eventually got him out. Man, he was strong. And I thought, well, that was a lesson learned there. I need to have something to put them in. I don't need to just put them on the seat because they're not like a dog. They're not going to sit there. But that was a fun thing to do. Yeah, Henry might have, Phil. You do remember it. It was a pretty good sized snake. He was at least 4 feet long, maybe 5. Yeah, they've got some scary stuff down there in Mississippi. Well, I mean, they've got the same stuff we've got, except they got cottonmouths to go with it. Well, thank you, Shelley. I appreciate that. I'd forgot about that snake. I'd been so long ago. There was another snake story at the airport. Word gets around when you handle snakes and do things like that. Word gets around, especially if not many other people do. And I was at work one day, and a couple of line guys, which are the people that move the airplanes around and fuel airplanes and that sort of thing, they came down and looking for me, and they got me, and they said, "We got a snake up here." And it had got into their APU unit, which is a big generator that you can pull around behind a tow motor, a tug, and you plug it into airplanes when they start so they don't have to use their batteries. And it just, it's a kind of a courtesy thing. Some airplanes need it, some don't, but it's easier on their batteries. They don't have to, use they don't drain their batteries as much when they do that, which recharge. But anyway, they can sit on the ground and run their systems if they need to. That's why airliners do it. Only airliners have them inside, and Phil used to work on those. He knows about those better than me, but they have built-in APUs. That's why when you're sitting in an airplane, you can usually have the air conditioner still blowing, and you usually can hear a whine somewhere in the belly or the back of the airplane. That's the little generator running. Hey, John, glad you came back, buddy. Holy crap, it's 12:30. I didn't know. See, that's what happens to Mark and I when we get on the phone every day. Anyway, they called me, and there was a big old rat snake, or I can't remember now if it was another corn snake. Maybe it was a pretty good sized snake, and it had gotten into the part of the generator and wrapped itself up, and they were trying to get it out. So I went up there and got it and helped them get it out, and caught that snake and took it down. Like I said, word gets around. When I went to work at TVA, I had this walking stick. I don't know, Mark, if you remember this or not, but I have a hook, which is laying here somewhere. I just had it out. And I made it and threaded one end of it. It's made out of aluminum, and it was just a basic V. And I could take the lower section of this walking cane off. And I threaded that hook so it would screw back in there. So I had a handy snake stick with me at all times. So a lot of times when I was working, if I was carrying my walking stick with me, and I would, because for this very reason, I would just take the bottom section off of it and put the snake hook on it for, flipping rocks and snake hunting.
Yeah.
And because that's what I did. Do what?
Normal stuff.
Yeah, normal stuff. So a couple of the guys that worked there went to call me Snake Man. So every time they'd come looking for me, they'd call me Snake Man. And I walked. There was part of that country. You hear stories, and all the local people say, "Oh God, don't go in that patch of woods. That mountain is covered up with rattlesnakes." And and copperheads just everywhere. They'd say you can't walk around up there without getting snake bit. And I walked those hills and I was actively looking for snakes. I mean, I was trying to find snakes, and the only thing I ever found on that ridge, and I was there, I spent many, many days on that mountain, marking boundary line. And the only thing I ever found was a garter snake about 2 feet long. I never found the first rattlesnake. I never found the first copperhead. And honestly, I think it's because they were probably there. The habitat was there or had been there. They were destroying the habitat by putting in a giant subdivision. I think they'd either killed what they found, and I'm sure they did, or there just really weren't that many there, and they were calling every snake they found a rattlesnake, because that's what happened. Many, many water snakes have been killed to be mistaken for a copperhead, and or water moccasin. That everything's a water moccasin. And I really looked, and I never found any rattlesnakes or copperheads that whole time. Let's see what Phil's saying something here. I recall marking you tearing into rock piles on the path in the Gray Ranch looking for pygmy rattlers. I do too. I guess you were with us that time we were hiking over near, you took us to some place that was near the state line of Oklahoma, New Mexico and Arizona, and you could see off into Arizona.
We were looking for banded rock rattlesnakes.
Maybe it's banded rock. Yeah, well, that's what it was. Anyway, we were walking up this trail, and all you guys were in front, and I was at the back of the line, and you all passed this one rock pile, and I got there, and I stopped, and I listened, and I said, "Come here." And I think you came back, and I said, "Listen." And there was a little banded rock snake and a rattler in that pile of rocks, and I guess you guys had disturbed it. And when I got there, and I guess when I got there, it was letting me know, "Don't you come through too," or something. That was cool. I mean, there were so many cool
blacktail rattlesnakes. We call
blacktails, and of course, atrog or diamondbacks, and those little rocks. We caught a couple different rocks rattlers that I think banded and something else. I thought
models.
Yeah, models.
Yeah, it's good snake country.
Yes, it's good snake country. There was lots, and in fact, that area. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they had one rattlesnake that was just Animas mountain snake, wasn't it?
Right.
A rattlesnake. That was the only
but
place.
We never found those.
No, but I know. But that was the only place they were supposed to be.
Right.
And we have the eastern Masaga. Yes, you do, Shelley, and that's. I'm glad you brought that up since I'm talking about snakes. That eastern Masaga is an endangered snake, and down here, I don't know if it's the same. I don't know if ours is a Masaga. I guess it is, but we have that down here in some places, and they're so rare that if you find one down here, you're supposed to. They'd like for you to let the game and fish folks know it, Tennessee Wildlife Resources, because they're so few and far between now. I don't even know what their status is down here anymore, but up there, I'm sure it's about the same way. But if you ever see one, Shelley, take a picture of it and let somebody know it's there, because one, it'll be a good picture, I'm sure, and two, they're neat little rattlesnakes. They're like I said, they're very rare. Not many people even know they exist. And in fact, I say all the time that we only have 3 poisonous snakes in this state, and that's not entirely true, because we do have pygmy rattlers, the Masagas or whatever they are. And I don't know if we've got any strange coral snakes here. I can't remember. I don't think we do. I don't think they get this high up. At least they didn't. Now that the weather's changing, they might. What's he saying?
He's going on and on about that. So Philip, Homie the Clown is a game warden in New Mexico, and he might be retired now, but I still keep in touch with him.
Yeah, pinion nuts we ate when he
Yeah.
was around.
So
And,
what was the critter dinner? I'm trying to remember that. Philip was talking about the critter dinner.
We didn't eat rattlesnakes out there, did we? I don't
I
think
don't
we
know.
did.
We were always eating something.
Unless that was over when we went to the
Hardy steak biscuits and rattlesnakes.
Well, we had that dinner. I know we had that dinner over at the people that were there living in that cabin, and you could go out their back door and see across into Mexico. You can see those big white signs down there, and they were about 5 miles away. But you could see those big white signs on the border, along the border, which was sort of fenced down there, but barbed wire or something. Hang on just a minute. I'm being summoned. Do what?
You need some water?
Yeah, a little bit. Wouldn't hurt. This is, I drink Death Wish coffee, and Brenda's drinking liquid death water.
No, burritos made out of javelinas. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Here you go. Thank you. Is this mine? Okay, that's my tall boy. That's just water. This is water, and one reason we got this was, it's high pH, so it's high pH, so it just goes down real easy. But it's also they don't put water in what? Oh, here's my wife, folks. That's Brenda behind me. If you've never seen Brenda online. These people don't use plastic. They don't bottle water in plastic. They bottle everything. They can everything in aluminum cans so it can be recycled. Because that's a bad thing these days. A lot of places, even though it's recyclable, and we try to do that, a lot of places aren't recycling plastic now, or right now anyway. But they still do aluminum. So that's why we bought some of this water to have around for that reason. And I don't know what it is, but higher pH water tends to go down easier than a lot of tap water. I don't like necessarily to buy water, but you got a lot of highs there and waves, Brenda, but you left already. She stepped out, folks. Phil, I had forgot about that, but that's a good. I tell you, my favorite food from New Mexico was still gorditas. I love gorditas, and you cannot find them anywhere else except in that New Mexico.
Just right there, just in that part. You can't even find them in Mexico. Yeah. I mean, and Taco Bell does not know what a gordita is, so those are not gorditas.
And Mexican workers in restaurants around here, like Mexican restaurants and cooks, I've yet to meet one of them that knew what a gordita was, or if they did, it was they say because a gordita, what's it mean? Chubby one or something like that in Spanish, I think, or fat one or something. And so they look at you kind of funny.
You can find them from Van Horn, Texas, just east of El Paso, up to Las Cruces and maybe over to Deming in New Mexico. Yeah. And that's it. That's the gordita zone.
I've tried to make them. I still haven't figured it out. I haven't tried in a while, but they make a corn pone kind of a cake or whatever you want to call it, and then they can spread it in the middle and open it up on one side, and they stuff it in like a taco, sort of, with the meat and vegetables and all that stuff, onion, salsa, whatever you want to put on it, and you eat it. And it's got, usually they had, the place we went down there usually had, like probably hamburger or something. It was loose meat, but oh my God, they were good. I love those things. What Shelly says?
I saw you suck in some hot sauce into your lung.
Yes,
at that restaurant, and I thought you were going to die on me.
I thought I was going to die too. That's another public service announcement. When eating Mexican food or any food with hot sauce, do not suck it down your windpipe and swallow it the wrong way, because once that hot sauce gets in your windpipe, you're in trouble. I thought that was going to. That was hard to get over. That really that wasn't good. Let's just put it that way. I thought I was gonna die too. I was breathing and all that, mind you, but I was coughing. I couldn't stop coughing. It was rough. Shelly knows it. Her husband knows a little bit. I bet you do, Shelly. I bet you know a lot about water.
Philip, what's the Blue Origin spaceport?
That's the Amazon guy.
I live under a rock.
Where do you say that at? Oh, Van Horn is, yeah. Van Horn is where the Blue Origin is, the space program that is funded, at least partly or mostly, by the Jeff Bezos.
Oh,
the guy that started Amazon, as opposed to the Google guy, which is Elon Musk. He does the SpaceX stuff. Hi, Simon. And the Blue Origin one, the one that Bezos flies, has gone up several times and back. It's the one that, if you saw it on the news or anything, Bill Shatner just went up in. William Shatner went up in and came back. It's made several. And what's cool about that one, I think I would give them credit. Their fuel is hydrogen, which may be a little bit more dangerous to handle. But when they burn it, you just get water. When it's burned, you don't get any other toxic waste or anything. It just turns back into water. Now, I saw something else here I was going to mention. Shelly said, when you came up, did you try the pasties? You know, I don't know. Or pasties? How do you guys pronounce that? I know what it is. It's a meat pie. And I think, at least that's what I remember. Come here. I want to show you another hunk of burning love here. This is Simon. Simon doesn't have his own webpage like Teddy does, but he probably could have. Simon is the strangest cat I've ever had, aren't you? Simon loves to be scratched, and then when you scratch him, he starts this licking thing. What? I'll see if I can do it right here on camera.
There he goes.
He can't help himself, but he must like it because he wants you to do it all the time. And he'll lick, and he gets going. He really gets going after a while. And I guess there's other cats that do that. I've never seen a cat do that before.
Must be like scratching a dog's belly and watching its leg kick.
It may be. It must be, because he just can't quit. I've often wondered how he keeps from licking all the hair off his feet. It's kind of funny too, because he's a bit chunky, and when he tries to get to his back end and do it, he just, what we call sit and spin. He just he rolls over trying to get to his tail and stuff, and you have trouble, don't you? It's an eating thing, I know. He's very food driven. And you're on a diet, aren't you? We cut you back. And you don't much like that, but that's life, buddy. I'm on a diet too, so I understand. Oh no, that wasn't Teddy, Tina. That was Simon. Simon was somewhere between. He's probably the next oldest cat. Yeah, he's the next oldest cat we've got below Spooky. He's the cat we sort of inherited from Brenda's mom and dad. They got him. Brenda and Kelly went up and helped them pick him out from a shelter, and they brought him home. And of course, sort of kind of liked him at first, but her dad was on blood thinners, and Simon always wanted to reach up and scratch because he always wants attention, and that was bad because if he scratched her dad real bad, he bled pretty bad. So they decided to get rid of him, and we didn't want him to go back to the shelter, so we brought him home. I think at that time we had about 5 cats, maybe. I'm not sure. Amazon dude, space there. Yes, Bezos. And Phil says he's had pierogies before, but I've never had a pierogi. But that's a meat pie too, I think. Kelly, one of you can answer that question. Some friends of myself, she said she loves watching Captain James T. Kirk go up in the spaceship. That's just a week or two ago. We reminisce about how they'd show us the shuttle launches in elementary school. See, Shelley's a lot older than me, because I remember seeing they showed us Mercury launches in elementary school, and the after that, the Gemini.
She's not much older than you. She's younger than you.
She's younger. Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
Shuttle launches.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I meant the other way around. But
yeah, we watched the other ones go up in space.
Yeah. And then you probably had
All
TVs
Apollo.
when you went. Do what?
Apollo for me.
Yeah, Apollo. Yeah, because you were a little bit behind me. But I remember when they first when I was in, I don't know, third or fourth grades, when they put TVs in classrooms, and they were supposed to just be for Channel 2 back here, at PBS, the education channel. And back then, that's all it was. They had math classes and English class on the TV, and you could tune in and, for an extra thing if you want to do it for the class. And some of the teachers used it, some of them didn't. But I had one teacher that teachers would show things like space launches, because at that time they were big deals and they were on the national news. Back then you just had ABC, CBS, and NBC. And if you could get one of those channels with your antenna, we didn't have, I don't know if they had cable. I guess they were on a big antenna. You could watch space launches. And then I had one teacher that was really kind of cool because she liked baseball, and we always got to watch the World Series. She thought that was important, that kids should know about, America's pastime. Hang on a minute. John said something about potatoes and cheese. I love potatoes and cheese, but I don't know if that's what you're talking about. They used to wheel them out in the car. Oh, pierogies, I guess. The AV Club was, I recall, early Mercury. Oh, I guess that dates me. Yeah, I do too, Phil. I remember when John Glenn went up. I actually have a vague memory of when Shepard went up. But I remember John Glenn in particular because I had a cousin who was named Bobby Glenn, and they used to kid him about, John Glenn. I used to tell people it was, he was the Glenn that went up or something. Somehow they used to make fun of it. Oh, TV on a cart. Yes, I do remember that, Tina or Shelly, whoever said that. We didn't go in the library. We actually had them out on. I've seen them on tables and I've seen them on carts too. And when VHS and then disc players came out, they had a lot of them on carts. They'd roll them into the classroom, and for doing, special things. I had some teachers, for a little while at UT, they did classes like that. You went into a study hall a lecture hall and watched videotapes of your professor doing lectures. They weren't even in the class. They'd pre-record the classes and you just listen to the lecture and take notes. And that was how you got tested. I was so glad they didn't do that when I went back, because I personally think that's not much of a way to teach. But, well, guys, here too, Polish. Okay, yeah. So, Tina, is that right? They are a meat pie. One of you asked that, I think. And potato. Maybe he means potato and cheese pierogies. That's what John's talking about, I bet. Yeah, Tina. Well, I'm getting ready to shut down the shop here. I just realized what time it is and how long we've been talking. And as you all well know, I'm prone to do that. I'm sure people have things to do besides listen to me. So Glenn went up on my sister's birthday, 20 February 62. Well, that's cool, Phil. I didn't realize that. I don't know if anybody ever went up around my birthday, but that would be something I would remember. I should look that up. That would be worth knowing. But anyway, I think it is time to shut down. Mark, don't leave. Don't go away yet. Hang in the room. When I shut down, you and I'll finish up. And but everybody, I appreciate everybody that's been here. If you haven't been here, I know there's a few people that will watch on replay, and I appreciate that. This was a stream that I was really looking forward to doing because, one, I wanted to expose more people to this gentleman. He's worth knowing. And I don't say that about everybody. So
I appreciate everybody being here. Sorry to bore you for hours, but
yeah, well, I don't think so. I bet people. I'll bet you anything. Some people have enjoyed the stories at least.
See you, Philip.
See you, Phil. Thanks for coming, buddy. And you're welcome, Shelly. It's and I could tell you there's a lot more stories, so I'll probably have to have him back on again. Well, thank you, Kay. That's great. I appreciate that. And I appreciate. I try to talk about things that can help some people along, and not that I'm better, but it's just that head full of stuff that I like to talk about. And I used to work with students some at TVA, and I just always enjoyed teaching those kids when they were at the right age. They're starving for information, and so I just always enjoyed that.
Shelly, I'll enjoy Wyoming.
He does, trust me. He's been out there a while. Well, Shelly, you ought to get back out there sometime. It's definitely a beautiful state. I mean, it's cold and windy, like you said. Winters are long, but it's a good place to be. So I'm going to shut down, folks. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming. Anybody else that's had to come and go, I appreciate them too. And as usual, like I said, if the creek don't rise, the good Lord's willing, we'll be back next weekend, next Saturday, I think. And make sure I'm not going anywhere. There is a Saturday soon that I'm not going to be available, I think, but I believe next Saturday I will be. And but I'll put out a notice before then. So thank you, everybody, and be safe out there. Have a good weekend and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And can't wait to talk again. See y'all real soon.